happens next.
I'm not saying it's a majority.
It's an absolutely absurd statement.
Happens right here.
Biden and the Democrats have failed you.
This is News Talk STL.
Fox News commentary.
Will Joe's performance that was largely overshadowed by his wife kissing the second dude on the lips be enough to rally the support of Democrats that would like to put him out to pasture? I'm Tommy Lahren. More next.
If I could be you.
And you could be me?
For just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Was this week, and aside from First Lady Jill kissing the second dude on the lips, it was rather lackluster. Had I watched it on mute with my eyes closed, I might have been impressed, but sadly I saw and heard it all, including Joe yelling much of it near the top of his lungs. Joe tried to gaslight us into believing he is a uniter, though he spent much of the last 2 years demonizing half the country. But you know what I didn't hear in his address? I didn't hear about 64 gender options or men getting pregnant. He didn't invite trans TikTokers as guests or push the experimental vaccine. Why? Because his team knows that woke crap isn't palatable for most Americans, and he is no doubt getting ready to announce his 2024 re-election bid, so he's back to his old tricks, pretending to be a moderate, a capitalist, and an average Joe. Well, Biden voters, he fooled you once. Will you allow him to do it again? I'm Tommy Lahren.
So many ways to listen to News Talk STL.
Come join the conversation.
Enable our Alexa skill. Hey, Alexa, play News Talk STL.
Welcome to News Talk STL, conservative talk radio for St. Louis.
Always streaming at newstalkstl.com or on your radio at 1019, 94.1, and 99.1 HD3. News Talk STL. News, analysis, and opinion. Welcome home. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Good afternoon and welcome into the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show here at 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL. Happy Thursday, all y'all. It's 3:34 in the PM on February the 9th, 2023. And I just had a reminder pop up on my little laptop machine here reminding me it's 3 days to the Super Bowl because they're advertising for Rihanna, who's doing the halftime show, which I had no idea. I love her. I guess we have one fan.
I love her. I love her. She's better than Beyonce. Anyone can fight me on that. She's great.
Ooh, you're going to get the Beehive.
I know. I am going to get the Beehive after me.
I didn't know that was what her fan base was called. The Beehive.
They are. Yeah. They're.
There's the Beehive and then there's Swifties, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, and both are very dramatic.
Very loyalist. They're loyalists.
They are loyalists.
We have got a huge show today. I'm looking at our show sheet here, and it's jam-packed. Dr. Randy Tobler, Daryl Jones with the Herzog Foundation, Jimmy Carafano with the Heritage. I almost said Herzog twice. Okay, so we got Herzog and Heritage. So we got Daryl Jones from the Herzog Foundation, Jim Carafano from the Heritage Foundation, and Chris, very excited to speak to Emma Reckenberg at 525 from your haunts at Newsmax.
Yeah, Emma is the co-host of the National Report on Newsmax, and that's the show that comes on after Wake Up America. I can't think of her co-host's name, but I'm sure she'll tell us that at 5:24. And Tim, you have a personal connection to Emma Reckenberg.
I just texted Dad Reckenberg, Paul, who is a former law partner of mine, very good friend. In fact, Paul and his wife Elizabeth are godparents to my daughter, one of my daughters. And I texted Paul. I don't get to see Paul as much as I used to. He's a hardworking lawyer, and I pretend to do a lot of different things. So no, Paul's a great guy. We are even though we don't get to see each other much, we are very good friends. Texted him and said, I don't know if you know this or not, but daughter Emma will be on with Chris and I this afternoon at 5:25. And Paul texted me right back. He said she's super excited. That's really awesome. I'll be listening like usual. You guys do a great job. Thank you, Paul Reckenberg. That is the father of Emma Reckenberg. How about that?
Yeah, and it was a real pleasure to meet Emma. She was in the green room when I was after my appearance on Wake Up America, and she came to me and said, we have a mutual connection. And she said, your radio co-host, Tim Jones. And I was like, oh, and got to talk to her for a few minutes before she had to do her own show. And Emma is very tall. I have a picture with her.
She is.
And maybe we'll put that up on the website. But she towers over me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and me too. Yeah, all the Reckenbergs do. They are very tall folks. They're not vertically challenged, and they're great people. Big family, very large family, and I don't know where. You know, it's funny because you get stuck in time with people. I've known Paul for, oh my goodness, this goes back to 2000. Let's see, 7, 6, 5, maybe 2000. I've known Paul a long time. I've known Paul probably close to 2 decades. And so, you know, I haven't seen the kids in forever. Well, they're not kids anymore. They're all grown up and all over the place.
Emma's in the big city.
She's in the big city, and yeah, I know the family is doing well. So it's really going to be great. A lot of great, Chris. A lot of great broadcasters and newscasters and commentators and actors come out of St. Louis.
Yeah, especially in the political realm. And Emma is a graduate of the University of Missouri Journalism School. My daughter is a graduate as well. And, you know, they say one of the reasons why Mizzou's journalism school is one of the best is because they have a working television station that they own, KOMU. The university owns that station. And the journalism students get real-world experience working in a real television station, and that's what makes it one of the best. And Emma worked at KOMU when she was at Mizzou.
So doing the St. Louis region proud, and we'll be excited to speak with her at 5:25. Chris, as mentioned, we have Dr. Randy Tobler coming up in just a few minutes here, and we can talk to the doctor about a ton of things, but there's a lot of activity going on Capitol Hill, some of it related to the COVID cash funds, and lo and behold, another Missouri connection, Congressman Jason Smith, the chairman of Ways and Means, says that the abuse and misuse of the COVID cash Biden Bucks funds has been one of the biggest thefts of taxpayer dollars in U.S. history. So we'll see if Dr. Tobler's had any, firsthand experience. Not himself, but I'm sure he's maybe heard some stories given the industry that he is in. It's a shame that we spent all those trillions of dollars, which jacked up the inflationary numbers and caused interest rates have to be increased. And on top of that, Chris, the money we don't even have any clue as to how much money was wasted.
Yeah, we've seen the stories of people that have gone to jail who used PPP money to buy Lamborghinis and vacations and pay off bills. The Post-Dispatch, in a random act of journalism, called out 2 people that used and abused a program that they ran to feed people during COVID. They were telling the government that they were delivering so many meals and were getting paid for that when they were actually delivering far worse. And the Post-Dispatch did some investigative reporting and did a story on that. And I think the FBI is investigating that. So, yeah, I mean, you look at the money that's been spent with Trump and with Biden, COVID relief funds, you're talking $6 trillion. $6 trillion, you're going to have a lot of waste. That's just human nature. Not condoning it, but yeah.
And the Democrats continue to want to redefine the definition of insanity, whether it's COVID or some other crisis, real or imagined. Their first and only reaction is usually, let's spend. It used to be millions, and then it was billions, and now it's let's spend trillions of dollars. That'll solve everything. We see that every time that they want to put the federal government in charge of something, it never works out the way that they promise it will.
Well, they've convinced the American people, FDR was mainly responsible for this, that if you spend a lot of the taxpayers' money on social programs, that means that you really do care. And that endeared a lot of people, especially during the Depression when times were hard and they felt the government was looking after them and cared for them. And we had programs like Social Security. To this day, as you know, Tim, if you talk about even touching it, reforming it, anything, they call that the third rail of politics, and it is that, and we saw that demonstrated at the State of the Union address. So they know how to work it. They've been doing it for 70 years. Give money away, buy votes. We see it here in St. Louis with Tashara Jones passing out COVID relief money to $500 to people that are in bad way, buying votes. It's what they do.
Mm-hmm. So the COVID cash hearings were being undertaken today. There was also hearings continuing on Twitter, hearings on Southwest Airlines and their winter debacle. It was not a winter wonderland if you were flying with Southwest. And hearings on the apparently what we all thought was a one-off event. We're now learning that the Communist Chinese government has had an espionage program going on for years regarding these spy balloons.
And we talked about it this morning on the show, how yesterday on the House Oversight Committee, former Twitter leaders were brought up before the committee, and all of them, their hands caught in a cookie jar. They're like, oh, we apologize, blah, blah, all of this, we're sorry. But, it's too late. And your sorries ring hollow when it's been discovered that you were having weekly meetings with the FBI talking about Hunter Biden's laptop. So your apologies ring hollow. I'm glad Elon Musk fired you.
Mm-hmm. You've been fired. All right, let's bring in our next guest to comment on those things and probably lots more.
Gentlemen, we're about to enter the fascinating sphere of police work. The world of forensic medicine.
Truly, you have a dizzying intellect.
They're really criticizing science because I represent science.
I'm a man who discovered the wheel.
Randy Tobler, Truth Warrior, Woke Destroyer.
Doctor, give me the news. I got a bad case of loving you.
As he does on Thursday afternoons around this time every week, Dr. Randy Tobler, the host of The Randy Tobler Show, aptly named, here on Saturday mornings from 6 to 9 a.m., joins us here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. Doc Tobler, good afternoon to you, Randy.
How are you?
Good afternoon. How you doing, guys?
Fantastic.
Nothing much to talk about, is there?
No. Can you set aside like the next hour and a half for us, because we've got a lot of questions?
Yeah, I'm telling you, this is like a clown show of government fraud being exposed up there. It's wonderful to see, but it's also frightening and disappointing as well.
It really is. And Doc, I know we're going to get into that, but we haven't talked to you since the State of the Union. The state of the disunion is more apt to describe it likely. What are your you've had a couple days now to let all the bad news sink in. What was your reaction to the State of the Union? Joe Biden's Joe Biden's soliloquy about a land that we really don't live in, do we?
Okay, first thought, liar, liar, pants on fire. Second thought, it's really sad to see an older man that can't not be honest with the people who have entrusted their governance to him. I mean, you think about it. This is a guy who's in the late fourth quarter of the game. And you think from a personal perspective, is he that much of a politician? Well, we know the answer. And what does politics in America currently do to someone when they're so delusional that they can just deceitfully lie and misrepresent the truth? Jobs created. No, the actual numbers were not, 6 million. 2/3 of those or more were just jobs filled after the draconian actions during COVID, eliminated those jobs. So there's really no stupendous jobs creation. No mention of, when he talked about fentanyl, he wants to do more task forces, more enforcement, more prevent manufacture of fentanyl. What is he talking about? Close the border, for crying out loud. One after another. And then, of course, trying to take Rick Scott's deja vu of him. I mean, he's the guy that since the 80s has wanted to either cap or freeze, or he once at one time sponsored a bill similar to what Rick Scott had proposed, which was, hey, let's take a look at this every 4 or 5 years. And sure, we're going to renew it, but it gives us a chance to adjust it, to look, evaluate it and see if we need to do some refinements. So, it's this hypocrisy, the doublespeak, and then the demonization, throwing Granny over the cliff with Medicare and Social Security, trying to pin that on the tails of the Republicans. It was just, what was great about it, though? In one sense, it was a beautiful thing. You know why? Because Sarah Sanders hit it out of the park. I mean, that was a grand slam. That was a Babe Ruth moment. It was beautiful. So I think the sides are set now. We have the disingenuous Soviet Socialist Democratic Party, and we have the traditional values Judeo-Christian Fundamental Foundation Party. And people can make their choice. I think, given the right candidates, I think we know how that might come out in 24.
Dr. Tobler, I want to get your thoughts on the Chinese spy weather balloon. The Democrats are saying that thank God the Biden administration enhanced our security so that this balloon could be spotted. And they're also saying thank God that Joe Biden let this balloon go all across America and to these military sites and blew it up in the ocean, because that way we can retrieve the wreckage and use it for our advantage. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, again, I mean, these people, when you don't have anything but a pair of deuces to play, you gotta bluff a lot, and you can't tell, and you gotta look bold, and you gotta have that poker face on. And that's exactly what they're doing. The Biden administration, thank you, Biden administration, for uncovering all of the surveillance we haven't known of before. God bless you guys. I think I'll switch my vote. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Look, I have a little bit of a tinfoil hat theory, and it's only a speculative thing. But given that Mark Milley is on record for basically warning the Chinese on the one hand, he's on record as saying he would warn them before crazy Donald Trump would do anything. And on the other hand, during the quote insurrection, there's indications that Milley was actually in control of our military response to any threat. Given that, is it not possible that people that should have known in the administration never got a chance to know because the orders down in the military at the radar unit in Saskatchewan or wherever it is, up in Alaska, in Juneau, wherever they have one, are like, hey, we don't want to let this hothead Trump because he's a loose cannon. You know the whole narrative.
Yeah.
That's possible. I think it's really possible. I don't know if we'll ever be able to uncover it because the deep state is so ingrained. It's actually become an extra constitutional amendment that was never passed. I mean, it's a fourth branch of government. I don't know.
Hogan Gidley asked that same question this morning that you just asked.
Yeah, I mean, you just at this point, look. I used to think series like 24 and who was the other one with the crazy paranormal stuff. I'm beginning to think maybe that wasn't so crazy. Maybe Art Bell back in the day of talk radio. You guys know him.
Yeah.
Maybe he wasn't that crazy. Maybe this stuff is real. You begin to wonder what is reality and what isn't when your president stands up there and bold-faced lies to you. And then the next day, or was it the day before, Brian Deese, his outgoing economic advisor, trying to claim that 2/3 of Americans are in a better place now than they were 2 years ago, when the polls say 16%, 12%. I mean, it's one lie after another. And the fact that there are enough Americans that this is even a discussion point, they should be running him out of office, laughing him out of office. The people should be registering as Republican, and well, I don't know. Maybe they should be registering as something else. The Republicans don't always conduct themselves the way they should, but they should be fleeing this party left and right. And yet there's people that embrace him, and there's people in influential places that embrace him. It really makes me sick. There's not enough Pepto-Bismol to go around these days, guys.
That's for sure. Dr. Tobler, before we brought you in, we were talking about another travesty and failure of government, and that has to do with another hearing that's going on in Capitol Hill by Missouri's own Congressman Jason Smith, the chairs of the Ways and Means Committee, digging into where exactly the trillions of dollars of Biden bucks and COVID cash went. Doc, what a shame, isn't it, that not only did the government mishandle the aspects of the plague as we were going through it, they completely screwed up the way to build America back after it was concluded, right? And now we've got millions, billions, maybe trillions of dollars of waste, fraud, and abuse being uncovered, and the American people are going to be liable for every penny of it.
Yeah. Look, there was a story in mid-Missouri where there was a multi-car FBI chase and arrest of a guy who had, co-opted or manufactured, I think it was a couple hundred Social Security numbers, and that's the common thing, that's the way this fraud was done in this setting, and reported those as employees and then got money for them and on and on and on. There's several ways to do it. Look, I led a hospital during COVID. I can tell you, the CFO and I worked till late in the night, most nights, because not only trying to run the medical operations and the staffing problems, trying to deal with the compliance issues and the changing recommendations and requirements from CMS. The rules kept changing on what the kind of requirements and what kind of eligibilities you had for the various multiple different programs from FEMA, from USDA, from the payroll protection program, on and on and on. And I can tell you, we would look at one another and say, okay, we've checked with the accountants. Yesterday's guidance was different from last week's guidance, but based on the latest guidance and checking with the bank who's administering it, God help us, let's say a prayer, we think we're good. And I mean, the vast majority of people I know are so in such fear of the government. Do I need to bring up DOJ weaponization? I mean, come on. That everyone that I know tried to do the right thing, but there was so much confusion and changing rules, and you would ask for what are the regulations? Well, we don't really know. We're trying to do it, but it's due in a week. Are you kidding me? These were the realities on the ground, and so I think there were some good faith efforts. Now, good faith mistakes that may have been made, I'm not aware of any that we've made. Audits have been good. There were some single audits going on, but that's different than fraud, willful fraud. And I'm hoping that, Congressman Smith is able to separate good faith errors made in a changing environment from the actual fraudulent environment. And certainly there's plenty of fraudsters out there. But it does point out that the programs were done in haste. They weren't well thought out. They certainly weren't administered properly because, after all, those government workers, God love them, we don't want to overwork them. God forbid that they work as hard as the people that were trying to jump through the hoops of their regulations. Oops, sorry. I think I may have insulted the government types.
Dr. Tobler, speaking of COVID, Tim, Katie, and I were talking about this earlier in the week about Stephen Colbert's show, who is requiring his studio audience to wear masks. In this day and age of COVID's development and where we're at with it, is that overkill?
See, I don't know what's wrong with Stephen Colbert. I mean, unless there's a local outbreak around that part of Manhattan or wherever his show airs from, there are potentially legitimate surges where it is, infecting, the infection rate is 15, 20%. Okay, I understand that. That could be a logical thing. You probably shouldn't even be having a live audience if that's the case. But that's not the case. We know that. This is a ploy. This is virtue signaling. And it's also a story of, hey, any publicity is good publicity. We're talking about it after all, aren't we?
Yeah. Now I feel guilty. Thanks.
I think it was a great question. Doc, what about Fauci and the NIH and the Wuhan lab? I imagine those hearings are probably coming down the pike. Isn't it important, Dr. Tobler, for us to finally try to at least act like we want some answers as to the origins of COVID and whether or not our government handled it as best as they could from beginning to end, so we are prepared for the next time that everybody agrees it's an if, it's not an if, it's a when.
Well, Tim, I think we should do both. We should continue to investigate it and see what happened. But I think if the Congress were smart, and they do have the power of the purse with their slim majority, they should see no further funding of any foreign investigation maybe in Britain in some MI5, protected facility, someone who's a true staunch ally. But I mean, I think we've got to really reconsider the whole nature of these programs and where they're done. It should only be done in highly secure labs, the kind you see maybe in Arctic or Antarctic, in these movies. And we should have nothing to do further with the Chinese. Those programs should be cut short immediately.
Dr. Tobler, who do you have on the show Saturday?
I'm going to be talking with a guy named Miles Yu today. He's a Chinese analyst from Hudson. I'm going to play that on Saturday because it's an important interview. This guy is a real important voice. He and his family are from China, and they've been forbidden to go back there. So we're going to be talking about him vis-a-vis the whole China thing. And I'm also hoping to talk to Ben Brown, if I can get Senator Brown on, about the parental rights bill, because it's making its way. The Senate passed it, and hopefully there'll be some transparency and accountability and a little restriction on the whites are repressive and blacks are victims kind of teaching going on in our schools.
Mm-hmm. Lots of activity in the Missouri legislature. Dr. Tobler, thanks so much for all the time this afternoon, and we'll encourage folks to, as we always do, to listen to you on Saturday mornings here from 6 to 9 a.m. at News Talk STL. Have a great afternoon, Doc.
Thank you.
We'll watch Stephen Colbert tonight and report tomorrow.
Make sure you have your mask on.
Fully masked. Yeah, very good.
See ya.
Very good indeed. There goes Dr. Randy Tobler. All right, it is 3:56 in the afternoon. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. Whatever you're doing, out and about, heading home from work, picking up the kids, or heading to the grocery store to buy $10 carton eggs. We're going to be back with Daryl Jones, president of the Herzog Foundation. We'll talk about all the school choice stuff, Chris. It's not just here in Missouri, but sweeping the nation this year, kind of out of nowhere. I think we have 4 states that have passed universal vouchers, so that's pretty impressive, and we'll talk to him about that and if Missouri could be the next. Jim Carafano at 4:25, Chris's Corner at 4:45, so that's a jam-packed 4 o'clock hour. Keep it right here. There is lots to get to straight ahead all afternoon this afternoon on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. This is 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
I make this pledge to you today. I will never, ever ride a bicycle.
Talk lines are open now at 314-912-1019. Mike Ferguson in the morning.
What happens the next time China flies a spy device over the country? Are we going to let it finish its mission like we did the last one? I've got updates for you on Friday.
Morning starting at 5:30 on News Talk STL.
So you want Steph's Pizza, but you're in Lake St. Louis and it's just too far to go. Not anymore. Now you can feed that Steph's Pizza craving quickly and conveniently in Lake St. Louis. Same great menu with a new location. 111 Pond Fort Trail in Lake St. Louis. Steph's Pizza in the Chesterfield Valley on Long Road, in St. Peter's on Jungerman, and now in Lake St. Louis. Check them out at Steph'sPizza.com because tonight's a good night for Steph's Pizza.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
Stephen Moore from Freedom Works.
You heard him talk about how he's reduced the deficit by $1.4 trillion. What he did is he came in and he increased the deficit by $2.8 trillion in his first year. And then the second year, it got cut all the way back to $1.4 trillion. If you gain 50 pounds one year and then the next year you gain another 25, you say, oh, look, I'm reducing my weight.
Weekday mornings, 5:30 till 9 on News Talk STL.
American culture is at a crossroads. I'm Kira Davis, and in my new book, Drawing Lines, Why Conservatives Must Begin to Battle Fiercely in the Arena of Ideas, I challenge conservative Americans to stop retreating from the culture. I help you think critically through the pressing cultural issues of our day and offer practical advice and solutions. It's time for conservatives to make themselves uncomfortable and get engaged. Get inspired, get moving, and get winning. Pick up a copy of my book, Drawing Lines, available on Amazon, at faithfultext.com, or wherever books are sold.
So many ways to listen to News Talk STL.
Join the conversation. All you have to do is say,
Hey Alexa, play News Talk STL.
Welcome to News Talk STL, conservative talk radio for St. Louis.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Jason Walker. As search and rescue efforts continue following Monday's massive quake hitting Turkey and Syria, rescue teams from the United States have arrived. Here's correspondent Jennifer King.
Piles of equipment wrapped in webbing were unloaded from a C-130 cargo plane at Incirlik Air Base in Turkey as urban search and rescue teams from fire departments in Fairfax County, Virginia, and Los Angeles County, California, arrived to lend a hand. The teams are traveling with 159 people, 170,000 pounds of specialized equipment, and 12 rescue dogs trained in finding victims who are still alive beneath the rubble of collapsed buildings. The teams and the dogs wore special jackets marked with the U.S. Agency for International Development logo. I'm Jennifer King.
Death count there now more than 19,000. Meanwhile, Town Hall News joining forces with international nonprofit relief agency Food for the Poor to rush emergency relief, food, water, and medicine to victims in Turkey and Syria. More information available at srnnews.com. Also at townhall.com, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky speaking out through a translator. He says Ukraine's fight against Russia is for the freedom of Europe as a whole.
Europe will always be and remain Europe as long as we're together, as long as we take care of our Europe, as we take care of the European way of life.
Well, the Biden administration admitting today China's balloon that crossed the United States indeed was equipped to collect intelligence signals and part of the huge military-linked aerial spy program that targeted more than 40 nations. A fleet of balloons operated under the People's Liberation Army was used for spying and outfitted with high-tech equipment. More on these stories, townhall.com.
First, we decide where we want to go. Then we need to know the best way to get there. Hi, my name's Adam Barada. I'm the owner of Advantage Gold. We're the highest-rated precious metals firm in the country. We teach people how to own physical gold and silver. Now, we've won the Best of TrustLink Award 4 years in a row because we educate our clients on how to buy gold and silver the right way. We don't pay celebrity spokespeople millions of dollars. We'd rather pass that value on to you. Call 800-900-8000 and speak with one of our experts. We'll send you a free gold kit along with my latest #1 national best-selling book, The Great Devaluation. Call 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000. Get the best information, the best process, the best service, the best value. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000.
Advantage Gold is not an investment advisor or a tax advisor. Consult with your financial advisor.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. The winds will start to ease after sunset this evening. Not as windy for Friday, but still near normal chilly day. A low of 33 in the morning with some clouds, but turning mostly sunny in the afternoon and a high of 41. So a chilly day, but some sunshine in the afternoon for Friday. Saturday, sunshine and 47. After a cold morning in the 20s, that's a nice warm up. And Sunday starts cold in the 20s, but high of 55 and sunny skies to finish off the weekend. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Hi, Sean Long for STL FenceWorks. For over 50 years, our time-honored commitment to quality, service, and affordability make STL FenceWorks the go-to authority for fence, deck, and leisure space projects. During these unsure times of severe inflation and supply shortages, you can depend on STL FenceWorks to meet your needs. Being the #1 fence and deck contractor in the state, we've leveraged our position to make contract buy-ins hedging against price increases. Also, our buying power has allowed us to stockpile fence and deck material. There are no shortages at STL FenceWorks. In fact, we have more fence and deck material on hand now than we have had at any time in our 50-year history. Lastly, our commitment to a quality and customer-first approach has never wavered. Your project will be completed by experienced craftsmen in a timely manner, and our lifetime warranty reinforces that commitment. STL FenceWorks warranty surpasses anything offered in the industry. Visit STLFenceWorks.com and allow us to bring your backyard dreams to life. As always, at STL FenceWorks, your satisfaction is our passion.
St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk.
What can we do to drain the swamp?
Live and local.
At some point, do we just let the dumb ones weed themselves out? Our modern society has been keeping dumb people alive for a long time.
This is News Talk STL. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
China today is saying they feel smeared, that you smeared them and their leader in your remarks last night. Have relations now between the U.S. and China taken a big hit, frankly?
No.
How do you know?
I know. I talked to him.
You've talked to
Talked to Xi Jinping before. And our team talks to their people.
During this and
yeah,
since?
After this. I haven't talked to them during this.
Oh.
Yeah. A man of few words these days is Joe Biden.
Isn't there a clip where he also said, I talked to him like 30 minutes ago or something like that?
Something like that.
It's like, yeah, I was asking him who he won the big game, Chiefs or Eagles.
Taking Chiefs or
Eagles.
Eagles.
We talk all the time.
How many points do I have to give you?
Did you hear the PBS reporter at the end?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that was your tax dollars at work, by the way. That was PBS. Hard-hitting questioning there, Chris, from PBS. But what are you going to do when, on the other hand, I'll defend the reporter. What are you going to do when he goes, no, yes.
Yes, no means no, yes means yes. No, yes.
And, even if they probably do lean to the left and are trying to support him, I mean, that is he is the president of the United States and he's having one of his senior moments. What do you do,
And
most days are a senior moment.
Did you guys see the visual? I'll have to show you on break. I am like, you can tell that man stayed up late for the State of the Union.
Of this interchange?
Yes, this interview, he looks like squinting, not there.
But when I saw that, though, it's like that's his look now. It's that aloof, not really focused, squinty kind of look that he has now. It's his natural look almost to me.
My gosh.
And if you want to know if it's a Joe Biden age thing versus just an age thing, if we're just being like ageist, we're not, because put Bernie Sanders next to Joe Biden, and Bernie Sanders is older than Joe Biden. Bernie Sanders would run circles around Joe Biden. So it's a Joe Biden thing. He's just not the guy he used to be, even when he was 100%. He was kind of a mess. And now he's a slow mess. He's like a mess in slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
So. Well, a lot of international news, of course. That's really dominating the headlines between the issues involving the Chinese espionage spy balloons and the Nord Stream pipeline explosion and all that. But there's a lot happening here on the home front as well. We try to cover it all. Let's bring in our next guest to discuss what's happening in and around the topics of educational choice and reform and Christian schooling in general as an option for kids. Daryl Jones, president of the Herzog Foundation, joins us once again. Good afternoon, Daryl. Welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
Good afternoon. It's great to be with you. Not really a slow news week, huh?
No, sir.
Lot go. And the word is there's a football game later this week.
Yeah, and you're on that side of the state, aren't you, Daryl? Things are probably exciting over there on the Western lands.
It's pretty crazy. It's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, let's talk about, I think the big story in education, for this week really was the story that was really dropped during the Sarah Huckabee Sanders response to the State of the Union and her plan to initiate major reforms in education in the state of Arkansas. Just one more state that's taking serious, that parents want to be involved in the education of their children. My children are are out of the house, they're college graduated, they're married and creating actually intelligent and beautiful offspring. It's amazing the way that that works out. But I'll tell you, my son-in-laws and my daughters are very engaged. This whole generation of young families are very engaged in their children and in the lives of their children. I think, perhaps even more so than my generation was. And I think, they're becoming more frustrated and fed up with a government bureaucracy that takes their voice and their concerns for the education of their children out of their hands and away from them. And I think, a bold governor in Arkansas has joined, the state of Arizona, Utah, Tennessee, Florida, even Missouri, in legislators that are saying, enough is enough, and we want our kids to have the best option for their development.
Daryl, these measures that are being proposed in those states that you have just mentioned have been around for years, but they've been stymied by the teachers' union and other bureaucracy. Is there anything else besides the pandemic that has made this ripe for this movement to take off now, and now we're seeing success in these different states?
That's a great question. And honestly, one of the great advantages that I have from my position with the foundation is talking to folks all over the country and hearing the same kinds of concerns. And it really is, I think, what COVID began to expose was that the education of children today is not the education that their parents experienced. It's a different system. It's a different day. And I think the change, you're right. I mean, these kinds of discussions have been going on for years. But I think what's changed is that parents are now engaging in the fight. I mean, so often, the last couple of years, some of the things that have been leading the news nationwide are these confrontational conversations in school board meetings where parents are saying enough is enough. And that's new. That's different. Ask the state of Virginia that made sweeping changes with a governor a couple of years ago over this very topic. And I think, when Sarah Huckabee Sanders stands up and when other states are having the same kinds of conversations, even for Missouri, and the bold move that we made just a year ago, it's all centered around, wait a minute, we have parents, our citizens are not happy, and enough is enough. I think that's the game changer.
Daryl, you made a great point when you first started speaking with us this afternoon about the missed opportunities that the president had that Governor Sanders did focus on, and that was talking about things that actually matter to the American people. I mean, Joe Biden spent an inordinate amount of time talking about fast food restaurants and other random things when he should have been talking about things that are kind of the seminal foundational building blocks of a great country. And it starts with the kids, right, Daryl? It starts with the future leaders of tomorrow, how we're going to educate them and what we need to do to make things better. We've seen over the last few years that test scores have plummeted because of the government's reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic, and we have put kids way back. And one of the I know missions of the Herzog Foundation is to move kids forward and maybe to try to catch up on some of that lost time, right?
That's absolutely correct. I mean, the focus is to advance Christian education, but we are certainly lockstep and locking arms with education choice folks from around the country that are dealing with charter schools, specifically dealing with even with non-religious schools, just private education, because honestly, parents want better for their children than the test scores that teachers are receiving across the country for the quality of their work. And it's not necessarily that teachers are bad, but it's a system that's broken. And there are options. There are other options for frustrated parents. One of the things that we're seeing, and we've as a foundation tried to address through our online news source, The Lion, is just parents that are concerned, exactly as you said, with kitchen table issues that appear to be neglected. And so The Lion is really focused on those cultural things that influence families, that affects family life, whether it's parenting, whether it's government, whether it's education, whether it's faith. And really, we're writing, it's been really easy to write 10 to 15 articles every day looking at current stories that are going on around the country that have influence on families. And so readlion.com has become a major initiative for us. But yeah, looking at ways that we can strengthen Christian schools and give heads of schools and Christian school teachers training in their disciplines and in their area, how they can be more efficient and utilize best practices, all in an environment that embraces faith and isn't hostile to the faith values of parents.
Daryl, the NEA and the AFT, the teachers unions, of course, they give millions of dollars to the Democratic politicians. And I'm just wondering, with school reform that we're seeing in these different states, will that break the power of the teachers unions in the future, do you think?
It's hard to say. It really is hard to say. I mean, never underestimate the power of the machine and the power of the beast. But I will say I think it begins to break the hold, the monopoly, as we're seeing across the country, just, a pretty significant exodus from the public system where families are looking for new options. I mean, Arizona and Arkansas, I mean, what Governor Huckabee Sanders has proposed is really any child in the state of Arkansas has opportunity for the choice that their parents believe would be the best for their education. And there are no qualifications. If you're a child in this state, it is literally education choice. And certainly in Missouri, we don't have quite that liberty. I mean, there are qualifications to receive, the opportunity to have, assistance in helping get the best education for your children. But more and more, that's what we're seeing is those kinds of discussions that are taking the qualifications away. And look, these are citizens in our state, and we want the parents to have the resources to make the best decisions for their families.
Daryl, you went right down the road I was going to guide you to next. Folks, we're speaking to Daryl Jones, president of the Herzog Foundation, herzogfoundation.com. Daryl, it's not just Arkansas, right? There's a movement this year. There's the dam is broken in a positive way, and there is state after state that is passing not only aggressive education reform proposals, but even going as far as passing universal school vouchers, which puts the complete and total decision-making for their children's educational decisions right back into the hands of the parents, not the state, not some pre-manufactured system. And Daryl, as you referenced, time for Missouri lawmakers and legislators who are in session right now to pay attention to this movement around the country and don't get left behind, right?
Well, I'll tell you that, yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, states across the country are having these kinds of bold conversations, and you're seeing, certainly legislatures, you're seeing governors that are making sweeping, bold moves that have never been done before. And the reason is because, when the focus of the system has been to protect the system, it's becoming more apparent to parents that this system is broken. And it's in that frustration that, legislatures are making bold moves. Governors are making sweeping changes. And it really is a nationwide movement. I think that's the right word, Tim. It's a movement that's taking place. And as a foundation, the Herzog Foundation, we're looking at ways in which we can empower, parents, empower churches, empower neighborhoods of people to have resources for a better education for their children. And certainly we believe that Christian education that's founded in faith and something bigger than, just my own temporal existence and the concerns of every day. Where do I find my peace? Where do I find my hope in something that's bigger than my local context? We believe that Christian education is vitally important.
Daryl, you mentioned earlier your online publication, the Lion blog, but you also have a podcast called Making the Leap with Chris DeGaulle and his wife. Talk a little bit about that in this week's episode.
It is a great resource. I'll tell you, from week to week, every Friday they drop a new 30, 40-minute video podcast. And Chris and his wife just articulate. Don't tell him I said it, but she's better than he is. She's good. She was at one point a public school teacher, and comes from they both come from a long line of public school teachers. And she left that post, and within the last couple of years, they actually did the unthinkable. They thought they made the leap, and they took their child out of the public system and put them in a Christian school. And so the whole Making the Leap podcast is a great work where on a weekly basis they're articulating what their concerns were when they made the leap. I mean, they're stepping out of the known. They grew up in the public education system. Everything they knew was public education system. And in making that leap, here's what they actually found. And it's been really encouraging to hear, certainly, ways that, they're talking to people in the education choice movement, but they're also talking to pastors and to local churches that are saying, you know what, we've had a youth group, but that's 3 hours a week. We've had a children's ministry, but that's 3 or 4 hours a week. If we're serious about helping our students grow in their faith and in knowledge and in gaining wisdom, we need to consider an education ministry. And across the country, churches are literally opening up their doors Monday through Friday, whether it's a one-room schoolhouse or whether it's a K through 12, 5-day-a-week school, or whether it's a hybrid. What's sweeping the country are these micro schools, as well as 2 and 3 days of classical learning in the church with state certified teachers, and then the other 2 or 3 days a week they're actually working with parents and with grandparents and continuing their academics, and the test scores are going through the roof. I mean, it's just a better product.
Folks, we would encourage you to check out that podcast and also check out the 2 great resources that the Herzog Foundation has to offer at herzogfoundation.com and at readlion.com as well. Daryl Jones, the president of the Herzog Foundation. Thanks once again, Daryl, for joining Chris and I here today.
Thank you, sir.
Wonderful to be with you. Appreciate what you guys are doing.
Go Chiefs.
Yeah, go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs. I love it. All right, talk to you later.
Thank you, Daryl Jones. All right, we're going to step aside for a quick note from our sponsors. Don't go anywhere, though. We've got Wildman Jim Carafano, the International Man of Mystery. Did Jim hear what he wanted to hear during the State of the Union as to issues involving the military, national security, international foreign relations, or not? We'll ask him many of those questions and more when we come back here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
You didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
For podcast articles and more, find us on newstalkstl.com. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. The winds will start to ease after sunset this evening. Not as windy for Friday, but still near normal chilly day. A low of 33 in the morning with some clouds, but turning mostly sunny in the afternoon and a high of 41. So a chilly day, but some sunshine in the afternoon for Friday. Saturday, sunshine of 47. After a cold morning in the 20s, that's a nice warm up. And Sunday starts cold in the 20s, but high of 55 and sunny skies to finish off the weekend. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
One-party rule is not the answer. The city of St. Louis has been under a one-party rule for over 70 years. We have made a decision to change that on March 7th and April 4th. Hi, this is Mary Teresa McClain, chair of the Republican Party, City of St. Louis. I want you to go to stlvoters.com now and meet our 2 candidates who will lead the charge and change history in our great city. Thank you for taking the time to go to stlvoters.com, where good decisions are made.
Paid for by St. Louis City Republican PAC, Curtis Farber, Treasurer.
Columbo and Katie.
Mark Lauder, Chief Communications Officer at the America's First Policy Institute.
It doesn't matter whether it's Trump, Pence, DeSantis, Pompeo, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, all the names that have been rumored about, aside obviously Donald Trump has announced, they're all going to be running on the same policies.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all going to be running on what I like to call America First policy.
Tony Colombo, Katie Fitzpatrick, weekdays at 2 on News Talk STL.
Hey, it's Tim Jones, and I want to tell you about View 17. You hear me talk about it all the time as one of the area's unique premier event spaces. We have had many events there ourselves. View 17 is located on the 17th floor of the old U Club Tower in Brentwood with a second-to-none view of the city. It's an ultra-modern media, conference, and event space, perfect for corporate events, birthday parties, anniversaries, or even weddings. View 17 will make your event one that people will talk about later. Check it out at VUE17.com. The minute you walk in, you know the space is like no other. VUE17.com.
Stories of New Americans.
Hi, this is Ron Clutho. Join me this weekend for Stories of New Americans, where you'll hear fascinating and inspirational personal stories of people from all over the globe who now call St. Louis home. We'll take a look at the U.S. through newcomers' eyes and get insight into world history and culture, and maybe just learn a little bit more about ourselves.
Stories of New Americans with Ron Clutho. Saturday nights at 10 on News Talk STL.
Now, the Onder Prescription with Dr. Bob Onder.
I'm Dr. Bob Onder. Over the weekend, Utah Governor Spencer Cox signed an important bill to protect children. The legislation bans subjecting minors to experimental transgender hormones, chemical castration, mastectomies, and even surgery. Governor Cox said that it was important to pause these permanent and life-altering procedures until we know the long-term consequences. Gender ideologues online, in the media, and even in our schools have been preying on our most vulnerable kids. Their targets are often girls with depression, anxiety, or mild autism. They tell these poor girls that all their problems will be solved if they only transition to a different gender. As diabolical as this is, it's even worse when so-called treatments are rendered. And there is no evidence that any of this does any good, and a lot that it does harm. Stop the abuse of our kids. Missouri needs to pass a similar bill like Senator Mike Moon's SAVE Act. I'm Dr. Bob, and that's my prescription.
Find more Dr. Bob Onder at bobondermo.com. Subscribe and watch your favorite News Talk STL shows. Mike Ferguson in the Morning, The Vic Porcelli Show, Colombo and Katie, Jones and Arps. Webcam streaming on Facebook, Twitter, Rumble. Subscribe and watch News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. You're listening to News Talk STL.
You know, there's so much of what we have achieved together on many levels that is based on our collective ability to see what is possible, to see what can be, unburdened by what has been.
Like and subscribe to us on Rumble. News Talk STL.
One of the things Republicans say is a priority for them is investigating your family, your son Hunter, your brother Jim. They talk about access that they say others have gotten because of you, because of your political success. How do you plan to deal with that?
The public's not going to pay attention to that. They want these guys to do something. If the only thing they can do is make up things about my family, it's not going to go very far.
Oh, hell no!
Don't look in this hand with what I'm doing over here in the other. Joe Biden not wanting anybody.
Just smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.
That's exactly right.
It's like the laptop is speaking loud enough, Joe.
Welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. Let's talk a little foreign policy, international affairs with our next guest.
We have one of our favorite guests on the line, Jim Carafano of the Heritage Foundation. He's Vice President for Foreign and Security Policy.
What the Democrats have, it's not a partisan comment, it's just a fact. What they've always done is for 15 years now, they've tied any immigration reform to amnesty.
Wild man Jim Carafano. No politics, just policy.
They won't deal with the problem that their policies are tantamount to open borders.
It's not just a catchphrase that he is the international man of mystery. Where in the world is Jim Carafano? No one's allowed to know, but we've got him on with us today. Yes, here he is.
I am in
the exotic and adventurous location, Birmingham, Alabama.
That's not bad. At least it's a little warmer down there, maybe.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's lovely. People are awesome. I was down in Tuscaloosa at the University of Alabama talking to the law school, and it's great. It feels like home. I like it. I'm going to be a Southern. I think I'm turned into a Southern boy. I really do.
You hitting the casinos?
No.
Maybe later. Jim, the State of the Union was Tuesday night, and we were wondering if you heard what you wanted to hear from the president as to all things foreign affairs, the military, the growing threat from communist China. What about the president's focus or lack thereof on those types of topics?
Yeah, well, I think we're all quite stunned that the absence of any serious discussion about China was just unbelievable. I mean, particularly in light of the balloon overflight, and then really, I think the section on Ukraine was completely disappointing. I mean, look, this isn't. This is a knock on Biden, but I would say the same thing about Bush and Obama and even Trump. Presidents do not take time to sit down with the American people, and when we have treasure and investments, in this case not lives, but a serious to explain to the American people why we are doing this. I mean, just saying that we're in for the long term, and which makes a nice tweet, I guess, in Kyiv, but this is not what the American people deserve. I mean, the war and peace are the most consequential states that a country can be in, and we're not at war, but we're supporting a country that's at war, and we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars, and I think it's worthwhile discussing why. And then there was none of that.
Jim, North Korea the other day had one of their China Soviet-style military parades. What did we learn about their military capability? Has it improved? And did we learn anything maybe about who may succeed the nut who's running the country now?
It's funny. You can't mention North Korea, and I don't think of the Billy Joel song. North Korea, South Korea.
Marilyn Monroe.
A Rocket Man from Elton John.
Yes, what we learned is Little Rocket Man is definitely becoming a more snappy dresser. I love the hat. I mean, it was a great look. It was a great look for him. So, the kind of the headline was, hey, most missile launchers that the North Koreans, have ever put on display, get that. But, to me, the real news story is I think North Korea is a manageable problem. The day before, with almost no news attention at all, the U.S. government publicly reported that China now has more ICBM missile launchers in the United States, and everybody just kind of yawned. And this is a very, very big. This is the reason for the balloon overflight, and the reason why it occurred under Joe Biden, because now that they have all these missiles, they have to gather intelligence to target things with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Jim, I was surprised to learn a couple of years ago, may have been because of you educating me on it. I know I had a discussion with somebody about this, that the concept of an EMP is not something that is relegated only to science fiction anymore, that Congress has actually done several studies on electromagnetic pulses, like we saw in the Matrix movies. And they've done a lot of studies. They've had a lot of hearings. They've created a lot of volumes of material. And those are collecting dust on a shelf somewhere in Washington, D.C. And then someone brought up the concept of, well, could these giant balloons carry payloads of nuclear-type devices that could cause EMPs? Jim, is this something we should be concerned about the next time a giant floating object descends upon the U.S. and traverses the country over a week?
Well, the balloons cannot. So the answer is no. Because they just can't carry that heavy a payload. And the other thing is, look, nobody puts a nuclear weapon on an uncontrolled device, like a balloon, and says, waves bye-bye. Just like, only in a Tom Clancy movie do they put nuclear weapons in shipping containers and send them off. If you're going to send a nuclear weapon at somebody, you're going to put it on a launch vehicle that you positively control. That's much more likely to be a missile. Now, and the altitude, right, you can depending upon how much damage you want to do, the altitude and the size of the bomb really matters. If you want to take out the entire United States, it's from a very high altitude with a very, very big bomb. On the other hand, you could take a smaller bomb. I hope no bad guys are listening. You could take a smaller bomb, and you could do it over the East Coast, and you would catch most of the heart of the nation's electrical infrastructure, and that might be just as damaging. To make clear, an EMP is an end of times weapon, because if you take out the electrical grid of the United States, we're all going to die. 90% of us are going to die within a year. First of all, the people like on dialysis machines and all, they're dead like the next day. If it's winter, half of us are going to freeze to death. But the world cannot get food and supplies fast enough to save 320 million people. So it would be a death sentence. Now, I must say that the number one way to protect against that is to build missile defenses, which thankfully we have, and you could do a lot more. There are things you can do to make the big electrical stuff that we really need recoverable, like the grid. Some of that's actually happening, and it's actually happening as a result of attention paid by Congress. So we're not doing nothing. Could we do more? Yeah. The most important thing we could do is make sure that potential enemies like China and Russia and Iran are really scared of us and afraid to try something like that.
Jim, President Zelensky has made his second trip outside of Ukraine since the war with Russia started. He made a trip to the UK, and an announcement has been made that the United Kingdom is considering sending fighter jets to Ukraine in their war against Russia. Do you think this will happen?
Well, to be clear, I mean, if we believe all the intelligence that we get, and I just posted something on Substack about this, that we really can't be positive all that. But we expect a large Russian offensive, particularly the aviation stuff. It's not going to get there in time to make a difference. Now, in the long term, Ukraine's going to need an air force to protect its airspace. So I think this is, when people talk about airplanes and that kind of stuff, I think that's much more of a long-term issue, because the infrastructure, training the pilots, where to get the gas and all that kind of stuff. I mean, these are things you got to work out. And those are kind of really many, many months and year-long things. I mean, what would be much more actually impactful and make a big difference right now is how quickly they get armored vehicles and, of course, additional ammunition to the Ukrainians.
Jim, the Congress is in full force and effect now. They're having a lot of oversight hearings today, but they're going to eventually be getting to the situation of the debt crisis. And, I'm sure military spending is going to come up. Jim, I know a lot of people don't like to touch that rail, especially if you're an elected politician. But, Jim, the Pentagon probably needs to be examined for waste, fraud, and abuse along with every other government agency, doesn't it?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily waste, fraud, and abuse, but is there spending in the Pentagon that doesn't have to happen? And the answer is yes. But here's the rub. All of these programs have powerful political constituencies. And if you want to kill a program that you don't need, you're going to have to roll up your sleeves and spend some political capital and have some fistfights. People are happy to say, oh, well, let's just cut, whatever, $100 billion or whatever off the top line. That's easy to say because usually it doesn't happen. And you say, okay, well, how about we get things that we don't need? Like there's a F-15E program that just makes no sense whatsoever.
Okay.
Well, nobody wants to do that because then you make other congressmen, because you're boarding other people's sacred cows. But if you really want defense efficiencies, you have to be willing to have the real political fights to shut down things, as opposed to just say, well, let's just cut the top line and avoid the hard politics of it.
Jim, Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida introduced yesterday a resolution calling for the end of military and financial assistance to Ukraine. Do you think that resolution will go anywhere, and is this the right time for that resolution to be offered?
Well, on the one hand, it's kind of meaningless because they've already allocated all the money to do that. So it's, it has no, and it's a resolution, so it has no force of impact. It's not likely to pass because there's bipartisan support for that. And, the the bottom line is supporting Ukraine is in the U.S. interest. So when somebody says we shouldn't give them any more aid, you have to explain, well, then, okay, how are we going to protect our interest? And I think that's an obligation. Somebody says, well, we shouldn't do this, and say, okay, well, how are we going to be better off for not doing this? And I think that's important.
Mm-hmm. And that debate will continue. Jim, thanks so much for making time for us today. We know you're always going hither and yon, and we appreciate you being able to touch base with us this afternoon.
Yeah. So right now I'm going home. So is that hither or is that yon?
Yeah, be careful, Jim. You're sounding like you're developing a southern accent there. So.
Yes, we can detect it. You're going to start saying Missouri next. Yeah.
Jim, can you say y'all right quick?
But I can't even. Missouri. Is that a real word, Missouri?
Sure,
it is. Really? Joe Biden said it in the State of the Union.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jim, say y'all.
Wow. Like when you pitch an airplane, like pitching y'all.
No, like come here, y'all.
Yeah.
Like that.
Oh man, you guys are right. I was born. I was born in the South. But it was the South Bronx.
We know.
Just refusing to say it, huh?
Yeah. Take care, Jim Carafano. You be good. And
Why didn't Jim want to say y'all? You think he sounds silly?
I wonder if it won't come out because he's a Yankee.
And maybe he's just like, not my thing, not my thing. But if he's visited the Midwest so many times.
I think he was playing us a little bit.
Playing coy.
Yeah, yaw, like a plane, like heave and yaw. Yeah. All right, Jim Carafano there, the Heritage Foundation. You can check him out. He's got a very delightful and informative Twitter feed, by the way. JJ Carafano on Twitter.
And I actually know what he's talking about. Yaw is when a plane stalls in the air and things. So, Hey, when we come back,
yes, sir.
We're learning more and more about this Chinese spy balloon, some things that are really upsetting, and we'll talk about that next on Chris's Corner.
Chris's Corner up next here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. You are listening to 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
This is News Talk STL at 1019 94.1 99.1 HD3 and newstalkstl.com.
That's not your mother, it's a man, baby!
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. The winds will start to ease after sunset this evening. Not as windy for Friday, but still near normal chilly day. A low of 33 in the morning with some clouds, but turning mostly sunny in the afternoon and a high of 41. So a chilly day, but some sunshine in the afternoon for Friday. Saturday, sunshine of 47. After a cold morning in the 20s, that's a nice warm up. And Sunday starts cold in the 20s, but high of 55 and sunny skies to finish off the weekend. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
St. Louis's place to talk.
The American people have further lost faith in our governmental institutions.
People can decide what they want and how they want to live.
News Talk STL. News, analysis, opinion.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness 101. Wellness 101 is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense, science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on News Talk STL. For more information, visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
Hey, it's Katie. We here at News Talk STL really appreciate the growth in our business during our first 18 months since we signed on the air. We appreciate the great local businesses like Save Money with Doug Voss, Crypto World, and the Natural Institute of Health that have all become part of our family of advertising partners. If your business is interested in becoming part of the News Talk STL family, simply send an email to info@newstalkstl.com. 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
When people have a craving to explore new and traditional Asian cuisines, they head to P.F. Chang's, where scratch-made dishes come from the 2,000-year-old tradition of wok cooking. P.F. Chang's wanted to explore new possibilities for their website. They turned to AmericanEagle.com. AmericanEagle.com re-architected P.F. Chang's website, integrating multiple third-party systems to create a unified digital experience. The results? Improved page speed and performance, personalized content based on users' location, intuitive online ordering, an increase in organic search visibility, and a 40% increase in new users. For scratch-made Asian cuisine, visit your local P.F. Chang's or go to pfchangs.com for website design, development, digital marketing, and hosting that produce efficiency, revenue, and results. Visit AmericanEagle.com. P.F. Chang's and AmericanEagle.com. Another example of the best businesses in the world, turning to the best in the business for websites. Go to AmericanEagle.com or call 877-WEB-NOW1. That's 877-WEB-NOW1.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
What happens the next time China flies a spy device over the country? Are we going to let it finish its mission like we did the last one? I've got updates for you on Friday.
Morning starting at 5:30 on News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
What we do is if we need that extra push over the cliff, you know what we do?
Put it up to the
We
line.
love it, exactly.
Made in St. Louis for St. Louis. It's News Talk STL.
Waiting for the break of day. Searching for something to say. Flashing lights against the sky. Giving up, I close my eyes. Sitting cross-legged on the floor.
Welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show here on a Thursday, late afternoon, early evening, 4:46 in the p.m. You are listening to 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. And Chris, it's that time of day where we step on into Chris's corner.
Yeah, it is. As I said before the break, we're learning more and more about this Chinese spy balloon, what its real mission may have been. And I've done a little research on the Chinese spy balloon and learned some things about its capabilities that are really frightening. And I want to share that with you next on Chris's Corner.
Chris. Chris.
The whole thing is a joke.
Good God, we gotta do something here, people.
It's not personal, it's strictly business.
My favorite black leader of all time is Frederick Douglass, who asked after emancipation, well, we just freed the blacks, now what are we going to do with them? And his answer was, leave us alone.
And if you don't know, now you know.
And now, Chris's Corner.
You know, these past 7 to 10 days, we've had a lot of fun with memes concerning the Chinese spy balloon. We've seen memes with messages on there that Fang Fang was wishing Eric Swalwell a happy Valentine's Day. And we've seen other memes of this is delivery of Chinese food with a box of Chinese rice, fried rice at the end of it. It's been funny. But it's also a serious matter that a spy balloon that's the size of 3 buses lazily meandered across the United States. You know, China has tried to say that this is just a weather balloon that got off course. But one of the things that we have learned was that this spy balloon had propellers, which allowed it to maneuver, and it had equipment on there, such as antennas, to be able to spy and gather information. And it also had a solar thing that it used for power to be able to power that equipment, which is very, 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 it uses a lot of energy. we really don't, you think something like this, okay, are they taking pictures of installations? Why didn't they just use a spy balloon? Or are they just doing this to be brazen and stick their fingers in the United States' eyes because they know that we have a weak president like Joe Biden? Well, I found a story in Forbes that is quoted from the South China Morning Post, and this is from 2017, and this is frightening what this technology may have been used for. The South China Post, it says in 2017, they reported that researchers from the Beijing Lighter-Than-Air Vehicle Center had launched 2 drones from a stratospheric balloon. An electromagnetic launcher fired the bat-sized drones. Think of that, a bat-sized drone at over 60 miles per hour. The first at over 80,000 feet, the other from 30,000 feet. The drones give the balloon a close look capability to check out objects below. The article mentions search and rescue, but there are obvious military applications. It goes on to say, the goal of our research is to launch hundreds of these drones in one shot, like letting loose a bee or ant colony, the lead researcher, Professor Yang, told the SCMP, whatever that is. However, Yang did not publish any open source papers on his work, and no further details are available. Now, it's good to know that the United States military has similar plans as this. But, Tim, we talked about it earlier. I was saying that maybe China was dropping a new virus on the United States overhead. And you said experts are saying that at 60,000 feet, a virus cannot survive being dropped from that level and make it to the ground. But what if that virus is in a drone that is released from this particular spaceship, and it can go to 20 feet, 10 feet, however close it needs to be. Maybe it can fly it over a sports stadium or fly it over something where a large group of people are congregating. The scary thing about this, it says bat size, but they are actually making these things, and there was part of the story, to look like a dove or any other type of small animal. So, I've heard of this technology before that, there may be a hummingbird or some bird that you think is a bird around you, but it's actually a drone spying on you. That's where we are in the 21st century. But I tell you, reading this story about them wanting in the future to release thousands of these things at one time makes you wonder, is that what happened over our military installations in Montana? Is that what happened over Whitman Air Force Base in Missouri? Is that what happened in some of our military bases in South Carolina? Did they release hundreds, thousands, or a few drones that look like birds or bats or doves? And those things are right now inside a military complex gathering all kind of spy information? I don't know, but it shows just how derelict in his duty Joe Biden was by letting this thing fly across the United States and not taking appropriate action. We'll know what happens in the future, but I hope that we have a response better than what we had this last 10 days if this ever happens again. And that is Chris's Corner.
So funny. You mentioned the thing about the birds. Did you guys know there's an entire movement called Birds Aren't Real?
No.
I've heard of that years ago.
What?
Yeah.
Go to
it was weird.
birdsaren'treal.com. It still exists.
Yes. This was like in the mid-2000s. Mm-hmm.
Katie, you can get a T-shirt that says, "If it flies, it spies."
I see. Yeah. Wait, that actually is really cool.
There's a whole movement called Birds Aren't Real. And some of it, Chris, some of it is tongue in cheek and comedic, but other parts of it are exactly what you said, is that governments that don't have our best interests at heart could easily design flying objects these days that look like birds and simply launch them into our stratosphere.
Yeah, I've seen one that looks like a hummingbird, flies like a hummingbird,
crazy.
Vertical just like they do, and the thing was a drone with a camera.
Drones are so interesting. The amount of intel you can gather, as you said in Chris's Corner, from using something like a drone. I mean,
and they're cheap.
Cheap.
And they're disposable. If it gets captured or it gets destroyed, so what?
And it's a weird, I have a weird feeling with drones because on one hand, drones can do some damage in a war so that you don't have any civilian casualties.
Right.
You don't have casualties within your own army base or possibly civilian, hopefully casualties as well. So there's some weird benefit to it if you were to think of it in that strategy. But as you just pointed out with the Chinese spy balloon, you can also build a drone that can go to a lot of different locations that you think is a bird.
Yeah. And then I go totally Matrix because I'm like, okay, if we've got drones and robots fighting our wars now and human beings don't have to do that so that we stay safe, what if the machines take over and start wars and they're fighting each other and they kill us off first, of course, and then they start battling? Boy, that could be a movie. Katie, you a writer? You Tim, you a writer?
Take me to John Connor.
It's already been done?
It's already been
Darn.
done. We could redo it. We could do.
It had a little twist on it, though.
Yeah, we could do Terminator Redux. Chris, I'm going to get you for Christmas next year. I'm going to get you this year. I'm going to get you the Pigeons Are Liars hoodies. Pigeons Are Liars.
That's amazing.
And look, here's the thing. I know our imaginations are running wild with this, but to the point that you're making, Chris, it just wasn't a good idea to allow an aircraft, which is what this balloon is, maybe 18th century aircraft, but to allow an aircraft to traverse the entire United States of America, collecting Lord knows what and doing Lord knows what.
You know, it's coming back to me now that birds, what's the name?
Birds aren't real.
Birds aren't real. When we were at the other station years ago, the person that was behind that or was high up in that was a guest.
No way.
On somebody's show. Yes, because I remember that distinctly. And they were a guest, and the host was, trying to take them serious, but was kind of tongue-in-cheek with them. But, yeah, they were on as a guest on one of the other at the other station.
We're going to have State Rep Bishop Davidson on from Southwest Missouri. He thinks birds aren't real.
Really?
He's part of the conspiracy.
What about when you see them? What about the ones that, fly into your glass patio and are dead as a doorknob?
Well, maybe those are the diversions, right? Those are the decoys.
I guess.
So one day, a couple of years ago for vacation, we were out in Salt Lake City, and my daughters and I brought this up, and my young daughters had heard of this movement. They thought it was so hilarious. So we're talking about it, and guess what happens? We pull into a random grocery store parking lot. I pull up to a random spot. We all look up, and right in front of us on a light pole is a sticker that says birds aren't real.
Oh, wow.
And we had just we were like, ah!
So weird.
That was so freaky. Out of all the spots and stores we could have pulled into,
it was that.
It was that one.
That is so crazy. This website is absolutely insane. They have big flags and everything that you can buy that says birds aren't real.
I can't believe that thing is still around. I mean, that was seriously 2005, 2006 time period. And I thought that would have been died out.
I guess it's a new fad. I love the eyes in the sky shirt. That's very funny.
They're actually, this is fashionable, I have to say.
It's good stuff.
But you never know. A bird could be a drone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like you said, they're designed to be that way. Yeah. I mean, we make cellular tower poles that look like trees now,
Oh, man.
So anyway, we got to get out of here for the moment. I know we have a caller or two calling in, so if you can just hang on, we can take you before the speaker's stump speech. So how about we do that? So anybody wants to call in to comment as to Chris's corner, as to the balloons and whether birds are real or not, give us a holler, 314, or anything else we talked about today, 314-912-1019. The speaker's stump speech on, hey, teacher, leave them kids alone, is next here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show at 1019-94.1 News Talk STL.
Talk STL is proud to have Doug Voss of Safe Money Radio as part of our lineup each week. Doug has been a staple on St. Louis radio for many years as one of the leading financial experts in the area. Doug and Safe Money Radio is on 3 times every weekend, but in case you miss anything, you can check it all out at DougVossSafeMoneyRadio.com or call 844-676-SAFE. That's 844-676-7233. Doug Voss is a registered representative. Securities offered through DHL Securities, LLLP. Member FINRA and SIPC.
Tony Colombo here, reminding you to visit my friends at Bluff City Outdoors in Alton before your next trip into the great outdoors. For decades, Bluff City Outdoors has covered all the needs for area fishermen, and they'll always have all the best bait, tackle, and gear for your next trip on the water. And now they cover all your bow hunting needs, including their state-of-the-art indoor archery range and techno hunt system, open every day for you to come shoot, or you can join a league. Follow Bluff City Outdoors on Facebook and learn more at bluffcityoutdoors.com.
For $1 a day, if any covered appliance breaks in your home, we guarantee to fix or replace it. All makes and models, washers, dryers, refrigerators, air conditioners, and more. Guaranteed to be fixed or replaced for $1 a day. Call the Home Service Club now for free information.
800-399-3701. 800-399-3701. 800-399-3701. That's 800-399-3701.
Tuesday, March 14th, News Talk STL presents Defending America, telling stories we shouldn't tell, featuring the Heritage Foundation's Dakota Wood and former U.S. Senator Jim Talent. March 14th at View 17. Tickets are free, but you must reserve your seat at newstalkstl.com or on the News Talk STL app. Defending America, telling stories we shouldn't tell. Tuesday, March 14th.
Sponsored by the Hammond Institute for Free Enterprise at Lindenwood University.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Jason Walker. Republicans in the Senate requesting more information from the Biden team concerning that Chinese spy balloon.
Senators Marco Rubio and Roger Wicker have sent a letter to Defense Secretary Austin requesting more information about what and when the administration knew about the balloon and the actions taken after it was discovered. Their concerns echo those of many Republicans who say the president failed to act quickly enough to a potential threat and complain the White House has not been transparent. Senators are set to get a classified briefing on the balloon incident next week. Bob Agnew, Capitol Hill.
More help is on the way to earthquake victims in Turkey and Syria. In the meantime, Town Hall News joining forces with the international nonprofit relief agency Food for the Poor to rush emergency supplies, food and water and medicine to the victims in Turkey and Syria. More information is available on the website srnnews.com. Also at townhall.com, a top U.S. military leader says American forces and their allies in Asia are ready for battle after years of joint combat exercises. Major General Joseph Ryan, who commands the Army's 25th Infantry Division, says a network of treaty alliances and defense partnerships upholding the international order, providing a regional safeguard in Asia.
I'm personally very buoyed by what I see by our allies and partners in this region and the way we've come together in response to aggression by the PRC and by North Korea to say we will not let that stand.
And he adds that Russia's setbacks in Ukraine should serve as a warning to potential Asian aggressors like China and North Korea. Ryan is in Manila now for talks with his Philippine counterparts ahead of 2 annual large-scale combat exercises. More on these stories at townhall.com.
My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year, $500,000 policy for nearly $50 a month. Then we called SelectQuote. SelectQuote found us identical coverage for only $19 a month. A savings of $369 a year.
Whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, SelectQuote could save you more than 50% on term life insurance. For your free quote, call SelectQuote at 1-800-940-6161. That's 1-800-940-6161. Or go to SelectQuote.com. That's 1-800-940-6161. SelectQuote. We shop, you save. Full details on example policies at selectquote.com/commercials.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. The winds will start to ease after sunset this evening. Not as windy for Friday, but still near normal chilly day. A low of 33 in the morning with some clouds, but turning mostly sunny in the afternoon and a high of 41. So a chilly day, but some sunshine in the afternoon for Friday. Saturday, sunshine of 47. After a cold morning in the 20s, that's a nice warm up. And Sunday starts cold in the 20s, but high of 55 and sunny skies to finish off the weekend. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
If you find yourself feeling out of place in the world, it's comforting to know conservative values haven't been abandoned everywhere.
But I'm not going to turn my dial off to you guys. I really like this channel.
This is News Talk STL. Welcome home.
I have a great place for you to go to for lunch or dinner 6 days a week, and that would be Johnny's Hideout in High Ridge. I was there for lunch yesterday. Johnny's Hideout, 10 minutes, only 10 minutes from 270 and Gravois, right in the heart of beautiful High Ridge, up on this big bluff overlooking extremely gorgeous Jefferson County. It is the best and newest St. Louis sports bar experience in town. 30 giant big screen, flat screen TVs, a huge game room. They got all kinds of fun games in the back, and a great outdoor patio. On the front of Johnny's is the Boulevard patio they put in, which is kind of like a 3-season room. They've got live music out there right now during the cooler, colder months. And when spring is about to be sprung, Johnny's is going to be having a big grand opening. You're going to want to go out and check out where you're going to be hanging out in the spring on that beautiful sunset stage, complete with the patio and the train station bar in the back. As you can tell, it's a huge complex, but boy, do they pack them in. I'd urge you to get there early if you're going any time for dinner on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday nights. Why? Well, because in addition to everything I just said, they're serving up one of the best menus around as well. The famous Johnny Dow's chicken wings, the best barbecue in town, the hamburger section, the hot dogs, the sandwiches, the grills, the wraps, and a pork steak that you can cut with a fork. Check it all out on their website, jhideout.com. On Facebook, Johnny's Hideout, STL. That's Johnny's Hideout in High Ridge. I'll see you there.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Congressional Democrats, by contrast, are ghouls. Take a look at this pin, which has replaced the American flag on their lapels. Notice that the O in abortion is in the shape of a heart. They literally love abortion. Now, let's set aside the politics and ask an honest question. Who loves abortion? Honestly, who loves abortion? Maybe you think abortion should be legal, but do you love abortion? Do you think abortion is a wonderful, affirming act you feel so proud of? You brag about it with jewelry? If you feel that way, you should know that you are not defending a medical procedure. You wouldn't say that about an appendectomy. No. You are promoting an ancient religious rite called human sacrifice. That's what this is, promoting human sacrifice. Let's stop lying about it. It's very obvious now.
Welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show here at 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL. Man, that Tucker Carlson, he knows how to wordsmith it and make a freaking good point. Chris, hard to argue with you when you talk about the satanic rituals that the society has embraced. And Tucker Carlson pointing out right there at the State of the Union, that's what many Democrats were wearing. Their love of abortion pin. It's kind of disgusting.
It is disgusting. I mean, as Tucker Carlson said, this is not some regular medical procedure that you go in and they try to call it health care. You are taking the life of a child because this is a choice that you made. And to have a pin like that is just absolutely disgusting. And, it's what I always say. These people, now they're getting so brazen that they are telling you who you are. And as Maya Angelou said, when somebody tells you who they are, believe them.
Mm-hmm. You're right. They're saying the quiet part out loud.
And it's just It's almost like when people do stupid stuff like this with a heart around in the O of the abortion. I'm like, what is your terminology for abortion? Do you know the definition? I mean, it's simple. Do you know the definition of abortion? Do you know what that means?
And I think what they'll say, oh my God, I can't believe I'm defending them. But I think if I was a pro-abortion activist like that, I think what they're saying is I love the right that a woman has control over her own body. And if it's abortion, so be it. But that's what I'm really celebrating, that that abortion gives her the right to control her own body. And I love that they have that option.
Ugh, I hate it all.
Oh, God, my mind. That's the second time I've deciphered something.
That
Joe
you didn't wanna
Biden yesterday
decipher, yeah.
and this.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, they're making sense to me.
Master of the Dakota Ring. No, we're just learning to speak their language so we can translate it to our audience who are probably all horrified at some of these conversations we have. But we want you to know what they're up to. It is 5:08, nearly 5:09 here on the big program. We got a jam-packed hour. Let me tell you first of all about an event we got coming up. Chris and I will be helping to MC and host our Defending America event, our next event here at News Talk STL, Telling Stories We Shouldn't Tell, featuring the Heritage Foundation's Dakota Wood, Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Marine Corps, retired, and former U.S. Senator Jim Talent, sponsored by the Hammond Institute for Free Enterprise. It's Tuesday, March 14th. Tickets are free, but you have to reserve your seat. How do you do that? Go to newstalkstl.com, or if you're listening to us on the app, just press the big giant logo of the event, and you'll be taken directly to the tickets page. You do need to reserve your seats ahead of time. Please only reserve the seats which you are certain you will use, because we're pretty confident this event is going to sell out based on how quickly the tickets are going. Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. Doors open at 6:15. Event begins at 7. It's going to be a great conversation with Dakota and Senator Talent. Chris and I and many of the other radio personalities of the station will be there as well, right at View 17, right in the heart of St. Louis County, across from the Galleria Mall. Chris, we got a few folks who want to comment about Chris's Corner.
All right,
let's get to them now and next. Let's start with Gene. He may be commenting about something from earlier in the show. Let's find out. Gene, good afternoon. Welcome to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, everybody. And I've got to say publicly, Katie is the preeminent producer there. Great job.
Thank you, Gene. You're wonderful. Thank you.
I'm glad you cleaned that up from when you said you called her a crack producer that one time.
No, we're not. Wouldn't do that. But you guys do a fantastic job, and just wanted to shout out. Great job for the wonderful mission that Herzog's doing. That's fantastic, and goes along with. I'll steal Bongino's terminology. We got to build a parallel universe, and that's what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Gene.
Gene, thank you very much. Always appreciate you listening and chiming in.
Drive safe.
You're welcome. Hey, Chris,
yes.
You got to slide in and try to take over Allison's seat there for a while when she's on vacation.
Oh.
Or Newsmax.
Oh,
Newsmax.
Allison Maloney.
Right.
Yeah, she was gone today. I'd love to do that. I just would have to. That'd be a long commute from St. Louis to New York every night.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go.
Vacation. Thanks, Gene.
Hey,
thanks, Gene.
Thanks for the call. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.
Senator Bob Onder just texted me about the birds.
Oh, what did he say?
He said, you know why birds sit on power lines, don't you?
Why?
To recharge.
Oh, my God. Okay, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Onder.
Dad joke.
Let's get to Bill. I believe Bill has a comment on Chris's Corner.
Hi, Bill.
Bill, good afternoon. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Yeah, I got a story. About 25 years ago, I was working for a company that cleaned exhaust systems, and we would clean exhaust systems for restaurants and Lambert Airport and Scott Air Force Base. Well, anyway, one day we were at Scott Air Force Base, and I was on top of a Burger King cleaning the exhaust system, spraying it with my power gun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, out the corner of my eye, I see this thing coming towards me, and I turn, and it's a metal hummingbird. Has no feathers.
No way.
It's a metal hummingbird, and it's like nosediving at me. Well, I start spraying it. Well, then all of a sudden it stops right in the middle of my face, and it's just hovering there, and I see it plainly in front of my face. No feathers, nothing. And then all of a sudden it just takes off. So I get done cleaning the exhaust fan. I go downstairs where my other employee was, and I tell him, dude, wrap everything up. We got to get out of here. I could not believe it. That was the first time I ever seen anything like that. And like I said, it was probably 25 years ago. And at that time, there was no technology or anything like that.
And Larry,
I don't even think smartphones were around.
And Larry, you will attest to the
Bill.
fact that, or Phil, you
Bill.
will. Bill, I'm sorry, Bill.
It's all good.
You
It's
will
all good.
attest to the fact that you were not drinking that day when you saw this, correct?
Oh, I swear to God, I was not drinking. It was during the day, and I could not believe it. But
Bill?
I just had a comment on your. It was true.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks for
I
calling.
appreciate you guys.
Bill, where are you
Thank
listening?
you.
Where are you listening to us from generally in the region?
Lee May Ferry. I listen to you guys all day. I'm a delivery driver right now.
Oh, fantastic.
I drive around, deliver alcohol. Deliver alcohol and listen to you guys.
We may have to have you make a stop here at some point.
Exactly.
Come on, Bill.
Yeah, definitely.
Powerhouse.
I would definitely do that.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. I listen to you guys, especially on Mondays. I love Jim Town.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, great.
Well, come to the event.
We'll see you at the event then.
Definitely. All right. You guys take care. Thank
Thanks,
you very
Bill.
much.
Thanks, Bill. Wow. Yeah. See, I always forget about people like that who are like in their car all day and like have us locked, which is awesome.
Let's just break this down for a second. What Bill just said. Just imagine you're on top of a roof doing some work, and a metal hummingbird just comes at you. What would you think?
I can imagine it was the same feeling as when someone looked up in the sky and they saw a spy balloon.
Yes.
Traveling
Yes.
about, just being like, I guess it's like a Google Earth thing. Hi.
But think about what Bill said. That was 25 years ago. That was before drones and stuff. We think. But you
Yeah,
know
we
what?
think.
The military is so far ahead on technology that we don't even know about yet that, he was probably, I think he said he was at or near one of our local
Scott
bases.
Air Force
Scott Air Force
Base,
Base.
I think he said, yeah.
So there you go. That's free. Birdsaren'treal.com. Okay, there you go.
And he said he was not drinking.
That's correct.
So,
That's right.
so this was probably real.
And it worried him enough that he was ready to hightail it out of there.
And he has never forgotten it. That's
25 years later.
I guess that's something you don't forget, I would think.
Well, Bill, thanks for listening and chiming in on that. All right, we've had a lot of fun. We talked a lot about serious subjects. I found something today that really made me pause. I haven't been able to read the whole piece because it's very long, but it's something that goes directly to the heart of one of the biggest and most honestly uncomfortable discussions that the legislature and many legislatures across the country are having this year. But this comes from someone who was on the inside. Let's do the stump speech next.
Listen to me, listen to me.
I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius.
You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
So that's another reason we need communism.
It's time for the Speaker's Stump Speech, sponsored by Hanson's Tree Service at hansonstree.com.
Title of today's stump speech is Echoes of the famous 1982 hit by Pink Floyd. Teachers, leave them kids alone. Maybe everybody should just leave them kids alone, at least on one specific subject, and that is this bizarre idea that we should be committing all sorts of gender mutilations, chemical castrations, and sexual experimentation on children. Another inspiration for my stump speech today was the Onder prescription that you've been hearing running over the last week or so. Dr. Bob talked about this. Many have talked about this. And, the problem is when I think in this day and age, the corporate media decides what issues are segregated to which particular point of view. And then what happens in our brains is, let's say it's an issue that the right loves, like cutting taxes. Well, then if anybody on the right talks about cutting taxes, then your position is automatically ignored because, well, you're on the right, so you should. And likewise, if someone on the left argues against cutting taxes, we tend to dismiss them as well because we're thinking first of the person and not of the message. That's why in this day and age, I think it's so critical that we look for unlikely heroes on these issues that are so important to our times. I have loved over the last few years that liberal Bill Maher has spoken up against the wokeatocracy, against the woke Stasi, as Elon Musk termed them the other day. It's refreshing when liberal comedians from Hollywood stand up and say, you know, I don't necessarily agree with conservatives on everything, but I agree with them on our free speech rights. Well, the same goes true for this bizarre mentality of what the transgender cult wants to do to our children. Now, look, I've gotten a lot more libertarian in my older age. Katie's very proud of me. As to certain issues that, you know, maybe the government just shouldn't interfere with. You know, what you do and you know, issues regarding your sexual preference for adults, I'm of the opinion nowadays that there's so many other issues that are, in my opinion, ones we need to focus more on, like electoral integrity and whether our elections are being hijacked, whether we're going to spend zillions of dollars and spend ourselves into oblivion, what we're doing in the world of international relations, that, you know, I'm willing to let some of these things just let bygones be bygones. The right has not, I'm going to say, always been on the right side of the culture wars, but I think on many issues we have, and on this one I think we absolutely are so. Now, when it comes to consenting adults, you do you. As long as you're not doing anything illegal or harmful to another human being, what you do once you reach the age of majority should be your business, and the government should stay out of it. But we're not talking about that. We're not talking about people that can consent. I mean, does the left understand that point to begin with? Children under the age of 18, which is what children are largely defined as in this country today, do not have the legal right to consent. They can't rent a car. They can't vote. They can't sign contracts of any way, shape, or form. Not even when they're 14, 15, 16, or 17. Even if they're very mature teenagers, they're not allowed to consent to some things that are a lot less severe than changing their gender for the rest of their life. And the way the left describes this, and I'm talking about the far left, because there's a lot of, I'm going to give them props. People like liberal J.K. Rowling. There is an actual national group out there called, I'm not kidding, Gays Against Groomers, who are standing up and saying, you know, sexual preference of adults is one thing, and that's something that we believe the government should stay out of. And, you know, we can agree to disagree on that with certain people's religious and philosophical beliefs. But when it comes to children, I am very happy to see there is an ever-growing coalition of people from all across the philosophical, political, and psychological spectrum who are saying that let's say what it is. It's not gender-affirming care. It's chemical and physical mutilation and castration, and it's sexual experimentation. Let's call it what it is. Let's call it what libs of TikTok has exposed. And then they can't defend it because they don't want to talk about what it actually is. Well, you know what? Someone from the inside who was on their side has spoken up. And guess where they've come from? Right here in the city of St. Louis. There was a bombshell article, folks, that came out today. I do not have time to read through it. It's very long, but I would urge you to look it up. It's at thefreepress.com, thefp.com, and we'll put it up on all of our socials. Check out who wrote it. Well, let me give you the title first. The title is, I Thought I Was Saving Trans Kids. Now I'm Blowing the Whistle. The subtitle, this is shocking. There are more than 100 pediatric gender clinics across the U.S. I worked at one. What's happening to children is morally and medically appalling. This is written by Jamie Reed. What a courageous woman. Wait till you hear who she is. Jamie Reed, I am a 42-year-old St. Louis native, a queer woman, and politically to the left of Bernie Sanders. My worldview has deeply shaped my career. I've spent my professional life providing counseling to vulnerable populations, children in foster care, sexual minorities, and the poor. She talks about her career that led her up to where she last was. Where that was a job that began in 2018 as a case manager at the Washington University Transgender Center at St. Louis Children's Hospital. I didn't know such a thing existed, which had been established a year earlier in 2017. She said, during the 4 years I worked at the clinic as a case manager, I was responsible for patient intake and oversight. Around 1,000 distressed young people came through the doors. The majority of them received hormone prescriptions that can have life-altering consequences, including sterility. I left the clinic in November of last year because I could no longer participate in what was happening there. By the time I departed, I was certain that the way the American medical system is treating these patients is the opposite of the promise we make to do no harm. Instead, we are permanently harming the vulnerable patients in our care. Today, I am speaking out. I am doing so knowing how toxic the public conversation is around this highly contentious issue and the ways that my testimony might be misused. I am doing so knowing that I am putting myself at serious potential and professional risk. I'm going to leave you with this final paragraph here and then urge you to read the whole article. Almost everyone in my life advised me to keep my head down. I cannot in good conscience do so, because what is happening to scores of children is far more important than my personal comfort, and what is happening to them is morally and medically appalling. This comes from a 42-year-old queer woman who also points out early in this article that she is currently married to a trans man. If this is appalling to her, it should be appalling to all of us, given her worldview. And that's the stump speech for today, February the 9th, 2023.
Well, if there's others that think like her, they need to stand up and speak out, because the image that her community has is the exact opposite of what she is expressing.
Mm-hmm. And she has it, Chris, because she doesn't just sit around and be an activist and talk about it. She was in the belly of the beast, and she's blowing the whistle on him. And good luck to her. I hope she has. I hope more have the courage to join her, because those are the people that we need in this fight along our side to protect our children. When we come back, we've been talking about this all show because we're so excited to have St. Louisan Emma Reckenberg, co-host of the National Report on Newsmax, join us. Emma's been, I think, listening to the show or followed us on Twitter because she tweeted it out at Emma Reckenberg on Twitter. We'll talk to Emma next here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show about all the news of the day at 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. The winds will start to ease after sunset this evening. Not as windy for Friday, but still near normal chilly day. A low of 33 in the morning with some clouds, but turning mostly sunny in the afternoon and a high of 41. So a chilly day, but some sunshine in the afternoon for Friday. Saturday, sunshine of 47. After a cold morning in the 20s, that's a nice warm-up. And Sunday starts cold in the 20s, but high of 55 and sunny skies to finish off the weekend. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Hey, it's Katie, reminding you to subscribe to our show podcast so you never miss anything that happens here at News Talk STL. Get our podcasts every day on the show pages at newstalkstl.com, or just subscribe to your favorite shows on Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, or anywhere else you get your podcasts.
Hey, Chris Arps telling you about my good friends over at the Dental Link. Dr. Alan Link and his staff do a great job of taking care of me, and they'll also take a great job of taking care of you. And I will be going to see Dr. Link tomorrow. I have an appointment with him at 9 o'clock, and that is and you've been listening to me the last few months, that is to begin the ending stages of dental implants, mini dental implants. If you are like me and are missing one or more teeth, or you suffer from loose dentures, mini dental implants might be the solution for you. Mini dental implants, they're less invasive, they're less painful, and your recovery time is much shorter, I know. Plus, best of all, the cost to you is much less than with older, more traditional dental implants. There are two convenient locations with the Dental Link. There's one in Baldwin and one in Melville. You can call them at 314-794-6464, 314-794-6464, thedentallink.com.
Who has the best burger around town? Who has 19 TVs, 4 pool tables, 5 dartboards, and 3 golden tea machines? Who is open for lunch and dinner 7 days a week? Who has live music every Saturday night? Check it all out at 2shamrockspublichouse.com. That's 2 Shamrocks in O'Fallon, Missouri. Plus, the owners, Tim and Mel, are pretty awesome.
2 Shamrocks Public House. Online at 2shamrockspublichouse.com.
The Vic Porcelli Show.
Listen to Ron Klain, the now former chief of staff for Joe Biden, how much he thinks that Joe Biden is just a great dad.
I learned everything I know about how to be a good father from Joe Biden. He is the best father I know and the best role model I know.
Yeah, how to be a good dad, like take a shower with my teenage daughter, that kind of stuff.
Vic Porcelli, live and local, weekday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL.
It's Proctor spelled like doctor for custom window fabrics and shutters. Upgrade or start from scratch. Either way, Michael is the St. Louis expert. Check him out at proctordrapery.com and then call Proctor spelled like doctor for shutters, shades, and draperies.
Proctor Drapery, the best in town. No finer window fashion can be found. Call for an appointment at your home. Spell Proctor like doctor.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Baby, you a song, you make me wanna roll my windows down and cruise. Hey, baby. Yeah, when I first saw that bikini top on her, she's popping right out of the South Georgia water.
You're listening to News Talk STL. Dropping truth bombs and making you think. It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
So they've dragged a social media platform here in Congress. They're weaponizing the use of this committee so that they can do it again. A whole hearing about a 24-hour hiccup in a right-wing political operation. That is why we are here right now. And it's just an abuse of public resources, an abuse of public time. We could be talking about health care. We could be talking about bringing down the cost of prescription drugs. We could be talking about abortion rights, civil rights, voting rights. But instead, we're talking about Hunter Biden's half-fake laptop story. I mean, this is an embarrassment.
You know, the Congress is pretty inept, but they can't chew gum and walk at the same time. They can't have multiple different hearings. AOC?
You know what goes through my mind every time she starts talking? The theme song from Madagascar 3. Da, 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 da. It's like the circus comes to town every time. She's such a showboater, you know? It's all about the clicks, isn't it, Katie, with AOC?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And she's fulfilling her role. She's supposed to be the mouthpiece or the junkyard dog on the House Oversight Committee where a lot of these important hearings are going to be held. So she's playing her role.
Mm-hmm. Let's bring in our next guest to talk about all things going on in dysfunctional D.C. and beyond. That would be Emma Reckenberg, co-host of National Report on Newsmax, where Chris often appears, especially every Thursday morning before Emma takes over on the airwaves. Emma, good afternoon. It's great to have you back here on your hometown airwaves. And just let me, on a personal note, I'm so proud of all you've done. I've known you since you were a little one.
That's true. Hi, Tim. Hi, Chris. Hi, Katie. And
hello,
St. Louis listeners. Oh, my goodness. I'm so glad we're able to talk and chat with each other and really have this reunion. It's been years. I know my family has known Tim's family forever. I'm getting to know Chris. He's part of the Newsmax family. So this is just a fantastic reunion. And I'm so glad to chat with you guys today. Thanks for finding the time for me.
Oh, absolutely. Emma, before we get into some of the news of the day, would you just tell our listeners, what was your journey like from St. Louis, Missouri, all the way to Newsmax Television in big old New York City?
It's kind of a wild story, but I'm so glad I'm able to share my own. I'm from Chesterfield, Missouri. I went through the public school system. I'm a Parkway Central graduate. Go Colts. I ended up going to Mizzou for journalism school. While I was at Mizzou, I worked for the NBC affiliate associated with the campus, KOMU, the NBC group there. I also interned at Fox 2 News in St. Louis, so I spent a summer waking up early with the morning team, and I kind of helped out behind the scenes, wrote some articles. I followed around Chris Hayes when he was doing his investigations. And I graduated from Mizzou. I got my first job in local news. I went up to northern Minnesota, where I worked with the NBC affiliate there for several years. And then I decided, you know what? I really want to get to the big city. I can work behind the scenes. That'll be fine. I just need a job. And I applied to Newsmax, kind of an up and starting news channel. They'd been online, the website for years. They had a magazine, but they were sort of relaunching the television station, and they needed a producer. So I said, you know what? I can produce segments. I know how to research. I know how to get guests. Let me apply for that. Got the job. Thankfully, Chris Ruddy believed in me. And I was told, you know what, you've got some on-camera experience, so just come camera ready your first day. You know, just in case we might need you to read some headlines or something. So I show up. I'm excited to get my start at Newsmax. And sure enough, they had me read some headlines, the top stories of the day. And they liked what they saw on TV. They gave me a chance. And now I'm working alongside my friend Sean Kreisman. We host National Report. It's weekdays from 9 to noon Eastern time. And it's a lot of fun. We cover so much breaking news and politics. It's really an incredible opportunity. I'm so glad to have it.
Well, Emma, I got to tell you, it was definitely a small world experience for me to, in between segments, you're in the green room preparing for your show. And then, you tell me that you know Tim Jones and you're from St. Louis. And I was like, wow, out of a city of 8 million people, I would have never expected to meet someone from St. Louis at the Newsmax studio. But speaking of Newsmax, we've got to talk about the DirecTV censorship, what's going on with that. What's the latest?
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up because unfortunately we are still not available to DirecTV customers. And I've just heard from so many viewers who have reached out to me. And they, you know how it is, guys, when you are hosting your radio show, you've got folks who tune in every single day. If they're at the end of their workday or on their commute home, and they expect to hear from you to get your take on the politics of the day. And that was sort of the thing with Newsmax viewers. It was one day they woke up, they watched National Report, the next day it was gone. And it's so frustrating because we cover politics and we give the opportunity for some lawmakers who might never have the chance to speak out on other liberal-leaning networks. They can come on our show. They can give their pitch to the viewers, and guess what? The American public can come to their own conclusions when it comes to top issues of the day. That's all to say that DirecTV has not let Newsmax back on the platform, and yet they have more than 20 other liberal-leaning channels that they pay for. They're not going to pay for Newsmax there. So there's a lot of questions about what's really at play, what's really behind the decision to let Newsmax go. It's frustrating, to say the least.
Couldn't agree with you more. Speaking to Emma Reckenberg, who's co-host of National Report every morning, 9 to noon Eastern Time on Newsmax. Check out Newsmax.com. Emma, you made reference to sort of how outgunned and outnumbered center-right, conservative, libertarian-leaning networks and print publications are every single day. One of the biggest headlines that I see is up at Newsmax.com, of course, today is regarding Hunter Biden. Emma, I got to ask you, I know that Newsmax was one of a very small handful of national networks and national print publications that covered the Hunter Biden laptop story and all the related fiasco around it from the very beginning. Emma, do you feel a little vindicated now that Hunter Biden and his attorneys themselves have admitted, oh, yeah, that laptop thing, it is real?
This is another reason why we need Newsmax right back on TV, because our viewers, they had heard about this story. This is old news for them, quite frankly. The fact that Hunter Biden's attorneys are finally realizing and recognizing, oh, yeah, our client did drop off that laptop, by the way. I guess that does belong to him. Our viewers already knew about it. And look, I think the fact that now there is a GOP majority, maybe we'll get a bit more information about what was, more on the laptop, and maybe if there were ties to the first son's father. That's what they're looking into. It's something that if you are a reporter, you might have questions about. A lot of reporters and mainstream media pundits didn't seem to have questions for the past year. Maybe they'll come to it now.
Emma, what is the format for National Report where people can tune in on Newsmax from 9 to 11 Central Standard Time? Is it just a straight news format? Do you give opinions? What's a typical show like?
Well, we start off every hour. We're going to run through the headlines for you. So that way you can wake up. You can start the hour with what is top news. Plus, we go to our reporters. They're live for us from Capitol Hill. So Logan Raddick will bring you the latest news of the day. Kilmany Dukart will also share the latest, and then James Rosen is live from the White House North Lawn typically. So you've got the very latest from Capitol Hill and from the White House, and then we'll take you all over the country, right? Our slogan, and we mean it, is real news for real people. And so we get out beyond the Beltway. We get out outside of D.C., and we explore the country. And so we hear a lot from parents, right? That was a story that stood out to me. Concerned parents about what's being taught in their children's classrooms. We cover those stories. We cover folks who deal with the high prices of everything, who are suffering under this economy. We hear from those folks. And we head to the border. We've got a border correspondent, Jason Jones. He actually reports what is happening. He will tell you that the Texas DPS members that he speaks to every single day will ensure you and the viewers that the border is not secure, unfortunately, when it comes to those drugs that are confiscated, the human trafficking that takes place, the human smuggling. That's what we cover. So it's the latest headlines. There is some political analysis. We have a national report court every day. So if there's a lawsuit in the news, we're on it too. A lot going on. We got some time to cover it.
Excellent.
Speaking to Emma Reckenberg of Newsmax. Emma, of course, you do all of this from the financial and media capitals of the world, New York City. And I don't know if your folks reminded you or not. I spent 10 years there before you arrived. And I love the city. I think New York and the surrounding area, despite its politics these days, is one of the best places in the world. My question, Emma, is, has New York bounced back from the last few years, which I know were absolutely devastating on the city, on its economy? Became a ghost town for a while. I was actually shocked that New Yorkers were so hoodwinked and becoming such sheeple during the pandemic. Knowing how I knew New Yorkers the time I was up there, I didn't think they'd take orders from anybody. But I'm hoping that, I wish them no harm, of course, because I've still got a lot of good friends up there. How is New York itself doing in the surrounding area?
Yeah, it was wild during COVID. I mean, it emptied out. People left, and the lockdowns were really intense here. And the fact that if you wanted to go to a restaurant, you had to show proof of vaccination. Wow. There were limitations for businesses, how they could run their business. They could only have a certain percentage, basically, of their restaurant open at a time. They had to do takeout only. So it was so strict during COVID. Right now, though, I'm so glad to say that people have come back to the city, those, I guess, who haven't moved to Florida or moved to surrounding states. They're still here. But, now for me, more of the issue truly is safety. When you are living in this beautiful city, it is vibrant, it's exciting. And I do love living in New York. It's very different than the suburbs of St. Louis, but it's a lot of fun. But I'm concerned about my personal safety. And, when you're traveling around, if you want to take public transit, you really have to make sure, your AirPods are out and you are aware of your surroundings, just in case anything would get crazy in New York City. I know, too, we've had Newsmax reporting about the migrant arrivals in New York City. So that's another thing that I'm watching out for, just to make sure, that everyone is safe in this city during this time when you've got people coming in from all over.
Emma, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about your co-host, Sean Kraisman. Talk a little bit about him and tell folks when they can watch the program, of course.
Yes. So Sean is awesome. He's so much fun. We have a great time. We like talking about the news stories. So we'll give our own sort of colorful analysis of what's going on in the news. Sean's from South Carolina, so a Southern boy who's also in the big city. And we enjoy, of course, we have a shared love for our families. That's a huge thing. He's an uncle. I'm an older sister. I've got a younger brother who is in 8th grade right now. So he'll be headed into high school next year, St. Louis Private High School. And Sean's he's great. He's a lot of fun. He's a Dallas Cowboys fan.
Oh, and I love him there.
So
Me and Tim love him.
How about them apples? It's weird.
So we and he's a movie buff too. He really enjoyed, as I did, Top Gun Maverick. That was probably our standout for 2022. So we got to look for a good new movie this year. That would be good. But as for when you can tune in and watch, we are 9 to noon Eastern time. So start your day early with us. and that would be fantastic. We'd love to hear from viewers all across this country.
I'm sorry, and I cut your program off by an hour. I said 9 to 11.
No.
Sorry, 9 to noon.
No, you're good. Yes.
Emma, before we let you go, and I know production is probably on the fly in the TV world just like it is on the radio world, but you want to tease anything for tomorrow that you know you'll have on for sure?
Lou Holtz will be joining us. How cool is
Oh,
that?
wow.
He's gonna
Love
share
Lou Holtz.
His Super Bowl. Yeah, his Super Bowl predictions, obviously. So I guess by default, I'm also rooting for the Chiefs. We are going to share our team who we're cheering for. So I got to go with the Missouri team, of course.
Of course.
Fantastic.
So he will be with us.
Well, that'll be a great interview with the coach in the morning.
Emma, say hi to Dad and Mom.
Yes, please.
We'll do. I'm sure they're listening.
They're
right
listening. Go ahead, say it.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Thanks for tuning in. And thanks, Tim and Chris and Katie, for hosting me
Of
today.
course.
Let's do this again.
Absolutely, Emma. We'd love to have you back. Good luck in the morning, and we'll be tuning in between 9 and 12 Eastern, so that's 8 to 11 Central Time. Emma Reckenberg, co-host of National Report on Newsmax, newsmax.com. Thanks so much, Emma.
Thanks, Emma.
Thanks, guys.
All right, very good. Well, that was a delightful interview.
She's great.
She was
She's
wonderful
so
to meet in
great.
person. She was just so warm and everything.
Nice.
What a crisp voice.
Bubbly.
I mean, I can see why she's good on TV and a command of the issues
Oh, yeah.
as well. Like
She's great.
We didn't tell her what we were going to talk about. We just started throwing fastballs, and
Yep.
she hit them all out of the park. So I know Mom and Dad are very proud, as they should be, of Emma Reckenberg, as we should all be here in the St. Louis region. All right. 5:44, we have one segment left. We'll be happy to speak with you again, 314-912-1019 if you want to give us a holler. And we'll catch up on anything we may have missed, and then we'll turn things over to the Larry Connors USA Daily Report next at 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. The winds will start to ease after sunset this evening. Not as windy for Friday, but still near normal chilly day. A low of 33 in the morning with some clouds, but turning mostly sunny in the afternoon and a high of 41. So a chilly day, but some sunshine in the afternoon for Friday. Saturday, sunshine and 47. After a cold morning in the 20s, that's a nice warm up. And Sunday starts cold in the 20s, but high of 55 and sunny skies to finish off the weekend. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
The news and talk.
The debt ceiling.
We had a good meeting yesterday. That matters to St. Louis.
Our conversation with this president.
Doesn't mean we're going to agree. This is 1019 and 94.1.
China should be stood up to.
News Talk STL.
Do you live in St. Charles County? Then you can get Mid-Rivers News Magazine delivered free to your home just by asking for it. Mid-Rivers News Magazine is the only print source for the political, school, business, and sports news happening in your hometown. Simply visit midriversnewsmagazine.com/subscribe to get a copy delivered to your mailbox. Or you can pick up a free copy at all area Deerbergs and Schnuck stores. Mid-Rivers News Magazine. Anybody who wants it gets it. Anybody who gets it wants it. Subscribe for free today.
Hey, it's Vic. Everyone here at News Talk STL is incredibly grateful for the growth in our business during the first 18 months since we signed on the air. We appreciate the great local businesses like Southern Armory, Rhino Shield, Steph's Pizza, and the Walner team that have become one of our many advertising partners. If your business is interested in becoming part of the News Talk STL family, simply send an email to info@newstalkstl.com. We have a wide variety of affordable advertising options. And thanks for listening to News Talk STL. Welcome home.
Do you own an annuity, either fixed rate, indexed, or variable? Are you paying high fees and getting low returns? If so, Annuity General would like you to have this free book to learn the pitfalls and mistakes of buying an annuity. The Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers contains the little-known truths about annuities, like how to help reduce your fees and increase retirement income. And it's free. That's right, free. As a bonus, we'll also throw in a free annuity rate report just for calling. We researched over 1,000 annuities and summarized rates and benefits from financially strong insurers. You get Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers and the Annuity Rate Report, both absolutely free for calling Annuity General today. Hurry, supplies are limited. Call now.
800-649-8619. 800-649-8619.
800-649-8619. That's 800-649-8619.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
What happens the next time China flies a spy device over the country? Are we going to let it finish its mission like we did the last one? I've got updates for you on Friday.
Morning starting at 5:30 on News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, 99.1 HD3 and newstalkstl.com.
I don't believe in fate, no psychic vision.
Some of his critics are saying that millions of those jobs are just jobs where people went back to the same job after COVID, and that actual job creation is much smaller than that, says the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They say only 214,000 manufacturing jobs and 2.7 million overall jobs if you're talking about jobs that were created.
Well, that's not the standard for how we measure jobs created.
Yeah, not at the White House. But, Chris, Joe Biden got pretty hardcore fact-checked on that 12 million jobs statement he made the other night by networks even like CNN.
Well, they should. I mean, even they can't let something like that pass where, Joe, the only reason why you have, quote unquote, grown that many jobs is because these jobs came back after a recession. I mean, a high school senior can figure that out, that those numbers are fudged. So they, to save face and to save any type of credibility, they had to fact check that because it just sounds ridiculous on its face.
And, because it just happened, I hope Americans aren't buying this line of hooey that the Biden administration seems to be peddling that, well, if we had been in charge in 2020 when the pandemic hit, there's no way that we would have suffered the same type of economic loss as the Trump administration did. Yeah, it would have been worse if Democrats had been in charge. They want to blame Trump for that. It wasn't Trump's fault. He did what everybody told him to do.
Let's be honest. Can you imagine a Democratic administration fast-tracking a vaccine and getting rid of all the red tape and the bureaucracy and, say what you will about the vaccine. We know that. But still, can you see a Democratic administration doing that?
Nope. And you know what else, Chris, they would have done? They would have done a federal mandate on a lockdown. There's no way they would have let governors make up their own minds as to when to reopen their states like Trump did.
And declared a public health emergency, and we are taking over these functions.
I mean, look at some of these stories we've been telling you about. Stephen Colbert still has his freaking audience masked up, and the reason he gave was because Joe Biden hasn't let the emergency in. So in Stephen Colbert's mind, we are still in a pandemic emergency because the government told him so.
Yeah, it just shows you that he isn't thinking and he's a sheep, and this is what he's told. No one wears masks anymore out in public. The numbers are not at the levels where people are in or overcrowding hospitals. People that do get COVID, they're recovering like it's a mild flu or a cold. To take these measures still is just, as someone said earlier, is just virtue signaling.
Well, Biden at the State of the Union, not last night, at the State of the Union on Tuesday night, Biden even said COVID numbers are 90% down. We have 90%. To me, way back 2 years ago, whenever we reached like 65% of the people being able to recover, vaccinations, so on and so forth, I thought that was wonderful. We're at 90%, and you're still telling me that Colbert has his freaking audience wearing masks to get into the building?
And I think ultimately what they're trying to do is make masks just acceptable like they are in China, where you just wear them all the time. They wore them originally because the air quality was so poor that they wore masks. I think they're trying to slowly train you as this is the new normal, wear masks now.
It's a way to erase identity, right? Think about how much of your identity is from your nose down. I mean, people's mouth is smiling, right? Grimacing. We do a lot with our facial features, and when everybody's masked up, what do you become? You become an automaton.
Yeah.
We can refer to each other as comrade and citizen. We can all just be the same. It's called equity. Yeah, equitably miserable.
Yeah, and I tell you too, and I'm surprised this didn't happen, or I don't know if there's statistics on this, but as bad as the crime problem is right now and how people are so brazen and don't respect authority or the police, I don't know if I want a lot of people walking around with masks on, because, hey, if sorry, I have to wear a mask coming in this store. I might as well rob it too, since you don't have a direct line on my face.
And can I say, as a mother of a 3-month-old baby, my facial expressions and what happens from my nose down at 3 months old, my baby girl can recognize, is starting to recognize that. At 3 months, she's starting to see what my mouth is doing, the shapes it's making, smiles. I never frown at her. She's a freaking angel. But she can see what I'm doing with my mouth. And that determines a lot of her emotions. That helps her say, I'm happy, I'm, this or that. And to know that people were speaking with babies with a mask on, I am like...
For 3 years.
How did these babies grow up knowing anyone outside of their parents who didn't wear a mask around them? I mean, we go to the doctor's office, and immediately once we're in the room and it's just us two, I take my mask off so that she can see, this is mom's face. You are safe.
Right.
She is smiling.
So she's not scared.
Yes. It's a crazy thing to me that my 3-month-old, she determines so much of her emotions off of my face.
And just think how it affects the development of these children that parents wore masks, and maybe it stunts their development, I'm sure. And then when they become older, they maybe misdiagnosed as being autistic or something, when what really happened is they didn't have the facial thing with their mother. They're not autistic. They're just their growth was stunted because people were wearing masks. Parents were.
Think about the poor little kindergartners who didn't see their classmates' faces until they went into the 3rd grade. That is a heavy development cycle. Kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, and they all I know we got to see, that's the thing. We're so blessed here. In Missouri, we got back to normal a lot faster, but in places like California, New York, East Coast, West Coast, they just took off masks like in the last school year or so.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
So to your point, a lot of kids were stunted. A lot of kids were damaged. There are studies on it where kids developed speech impediments who, before the pandemic, they were absolutely fine.
Yeah, and then throw that on top of not actually having in-person, in-class learning.
Yeah.
So you've got your social development stunted by mask, and then your educational development is stunted because you don't have in-person learning.
I'm sorry. This is the last thing that I'm going to say about being a parent now. But that is, a baby not being acclimated with other people besides mom and dad plays a huge role as well. Like baby not understanding that there is a world around them besides mom and dad, and having to get used to other people is also a huge factor in growth and development and learning and self-soothing. I mean, and to know that there were babies born for 3 years that didn't have contact outside of two people is like,
right.
I mean, that's
You
also
sound
scary.
like you were reading a lot of books before
so.
during the pregnancy. You know a lot there. I'm impressed, though, just
Oh,
about
thank you.
development and how things are.
You got to. You got to know whenever you're when that baby's screaming at 3 o'clock in the morning. You got to know the cues.
I hear you.
And despite everything we just said, isn't on the positive side of the coin? Isn't it amazing how resilient humans are? Yeah. Because from everything we just said, we should all be completely and utterly screwed up, right? It's amazing that anybody is back to normal, but thankfully the human body, mind, and spirit, it can get damaged, but we're also resilient creatures. And it's taken some longer than others, and some may wear their coexist face diapers till the day they die, but many people have, even liberals, I know people who are absolutely liberals who are not wearing masks anywhere anymore, and that's good to see.
But, people that you see, of course, they probably are liberal that are wearing masks. They have deeper fears than just COVID. I bet you if you looked at their life, they are fearful people in general, and this is just heightened that. But, they didn't become fearful because of COVID all of a sudden. They've always been like that, to take it to this extreme.
The government played on those fears, and they would rather listen to the government than their own common sense. So, did you notice how corporate came in earlier, didn't believe us about how hot it was in here?
He can stand in. Joe can stand in here for a little bit.
Yeah, Joe.
It's
now
hot in here, man.
Yeah, we've had fires. I'm sorry, we've had floods, and now we have infernos. So, but a little warm in the studio today, but we got through it. None of us passed out.
Climate change.
You know when I say
climate
it's
change
warm,
in the studio.
It's warm.
Yes, Chris thought it was hot. So there you have it. Larry Connor's USA Daily Report is next. We'll be back tomorrow, 3:30 out of the gates, to help roll you into the weekend. Go Chiefs here at 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
In any universe, you are my dark star.
Hey, Colombo here for Zero Res. February is the month for love, but when was the last time you gave your carpet the love it deserves? Your carpet is the largest air filter in your home, so if it hasn't been cleaned, you're breathing unhealthy levels of germs.